Well, welcome to you, and let's settle for the AM news this morning. In our first story, police on the Wale Tamale Highway have arrested 3 men with arms at Kukwabela near Nasia in the West Mamprisi municipality of the Northeast region. The suspects, 2 Nigerians and a Ghanaian, were arrested with a loaded AK-47 rifle, a foreign-made pistol, and ammunition concealed in the vehicle that they were traveling in. They are currently in custody in Tamale after a circuit court in the northern region granted a remand application for further investigation. Regional Crime Officer Superintendent Baba Ananga says the police is yet to establish the real motive of the suspects.
That are on the roads, very vigilant. They were placed there on anti-robbery operations on the highway. You know, the Kukobila, Nasia roads, the Bolagatanga highway. Recently we experienced a lot of robberies on the roads. So the Regional Police Command decided to put policemen on the highway, others on patrols, others operating checkpoints. So a vehicle just pulled up and they suspected it to be a vehicle that has suspicious characters on them, and conducted a search, retrieved some weapons and 1 AK-47 and a pistol, and caused the arrest of the persons.
How many individuals were there?
There were 3.
Where are they now?
They are on remand. They have been arraigned before courts, and they are in custody assisting us in investigations.
I'm asking, they haven't mentioned that to you?
That they were targeting somebody?
The police, yes.
No, they didn't tell me that they were targeting somebody. They also mentioned to me the source and also the destination that they were going. But we were interested in why they were in possession of such arms.
And the source and the destination, where were they going?
Well, I cannot reveal to you our investigations, what we have at hand and we intend to pursue. Telling you everything in the media, what we intend to do, what we are about to do, our destination, our source and all that is it's too early for us to do that. It is only the investigation when we conclude that, then we come out with our information, the facts that we have.
Well, now, the newly inducted Vice-Chancellor of the Dr. Hilla Liman Technical University, Professor Elias Sole, is worried about the lack of halls of residence for students and staff of the university. He says this is adversely affecting teaching and learning in the school and wants government to come to their aid. Professor Sole has been speaking at his investiture in Wa. Correspondent Rafiq Salam reports.
The ceremony at the Dr. Hilla Liman Technical University was in twofold. First was the investiture of the first Vice-Chancellor of the university, which was preceded by the graduation of 311 students. Professor Elias Nota Kurendeb Sole is taking over from Professor Emmanuel Mafo Owusu, whose reign was characterized by industrial unrest and protracted litigation between him, the governing council, and some labor unions of the university. Professor Sole, aware of the deep-seated rift that existed in the past, which halted academic activities, hopes to move above them, mend fences, and prevent such occurrences in the future. Among the 6 things on his to-do list are promoting good governance, making himself available, and consulting all relevant bodies on issues of mutual interest.
Minister the university in a transparent manner by establishing the structures prescribed by law in the statutes of the university, backed by the relevant policies, which must also be developed. I will make myself accessible to all stakeholders and consult them on issues of mutual interests.
Wanting warrant for authorities and students of this university has to do with hostel facilities for the university. Since its establishment, they have not gotten any hostel facility of their own. As a result, students commute from their homes or private hostels to the university. The new Vice-Chancellor therefore saw it as a necessity and appealed to the government and other benevolent organizations to come to their aid.
For the wholesale project in particular, we want to say that it's a major challenge facing us as a university, and it's really creating a lot of inconvenience for our students who have to commute from various places in the municipality to the campus and back. The student hostel project is a 3-story facility that can accommodate about 800 students and 30 teaching assistants. This project was first awarded in 2008 and was terminated in 2020 at 30% completion. The project was re-awarded in June 2013, but the contractor did not mobilize to site, and the contract was subsequently terminated. Mr. Chairman, we want to once again appeal that everything should be done to help us complete this hostel.
Upper West Regional Minister Dr. Hafiz Bin Sali noted that government is not oblivious of the challenges faced by technical universities in the country, and for that matter, the Dr. Hilal Technical University, he however assured them of the commitment of the government to fixing the challenges.
We are aware of the serious infrastructural deficit, including student hostels, faculty buildings, auditoriums, lecture halls, and laboratories, just to mention a few. I assure you of the government's commitment and continued support to this technical university and all other universities in the country.
Chairman of the Governing Council, Chief Suleiman Anabela, admonished the graduates to go into the world and impact positively on their immediate and wider communities.
Government has spent a lot of the taxpayers' money to bring you to this far. And please do not let this investment go in vain. I have no doubt you have been equipped with the desired knowledge and skills to go out there and impact positively on your immediate and wider communities. Be good ambassadors of the university and lead very exemplary lives wherever you find yourselves.
In all.
Well, let's talk health now. And the National Blood Service says inadequate supply at the various blood banks remains a big threat and is negatively affecting efforts at saving lives. The misconception about blood donations, the outbreak of the COVID-19 scourge, among others, are said to be contributory factors to the inadequate blood supply. Senior blood donor recruitment officer of the National Blood Service, Jonas Molly Belko, disclosed this to JoyNews at a blood donation exercise organized with the Red Cross at Ashaiman to mark World Red Cross Day.
Ashaiman was in two parts: blood donation and sensitization exercise on cardiopulmonary resuscitation, CPR, by National Blood Service and Ghana Red Cross Society, respectively. The country is said to be able to only meet about 50% of its blood target of 300,000 pints annually. This had direct consequences on saving lives, including bleeding during pregnancy and childbirth complications, severe childhood anemia, sickle cell patients, but just to mention a few. Senior blood donor recruitment officer of the National Blood Service, Jonas Mulibelko, is encouraging voluntary donation to help avert such situations.
The inadequate supply of blood definitely would affect service delivery, in the sense that as the National Blood Service or worldwide World Health Organization says, we should move to 100% voluntary, which means that people should donate blood voluntary. We shouldn't have a situation where a patient needs blood and would have to depend on the patient's relative or a friend to be able to survive. Blood has to always wait for a patient, not a patient waiting for blood. And when there is shortage, definitely it will affect service delivery, and a lot of people will have to die because there's no blood at various blood banks. And I think that we have a lot to play as individuals, as organizations, to be able to support the efforts of blood donation exercises.
Ashaiman Municipal Chair for Red Cross, Eric Gregory Kwetia, is urging the youth to take up voluntary work to help develop the country.
Well, in the OT region now, Regional Health Director Dr. Osei Kufuor-Afre is asking health workers to be more professional in the discharge of their duties. Dr. Afre says the tendency of choosing personal comfort over a client's health is opposed to the professional ethics of the service. He's been speaking at the launch of the 50th anniversary of the St. Joseph's Hospital in Nkwanta. Here's correspondent Peter Senu's report on that.
Colleague doctors of today to our doctors of yesterday. Sometimes I bow my head and I weep. Some of us were the last batch of the old doctors. The new breed are extremely different from them. Between last 2 years, 2020 and 2021, about 19 doctors have been posted to the OT region, and only one reported. Even that one was already doing locum. So we retained him. Anytime I call them, they ask me what are they going to get? How much top up am I going to give them before they accept posting here? They tell me, can they do locum and make extra money?
That was Dr. Osei Kufuor-Afre decrying the call to duty attitude of some young doctors who were posted to the OT region. Apart from the attitude of the young doctors, he also wants health workers in the region to adopt a more positive attitude towards duty, for which saving life should be a priority.
A doctor, do your work well as a doctor. If you're an administrator, do your work well as an administrator. Because we are a team. And it's not somebody who teaches the other person how to work. You've all passed your exams, you all receive salary. So how even you talk to the patients, we are all taught in school. How we do our work, we are all taught. So please go back to that professionalism, and I think it should lead the service that we all have. Health is all or none. If the treatment you are giving to your neighbor or a client, if somebody had done the same to you, you would not have appreciated it, then it means there's something wrong with what you are doing.
Dr. Afre, while speaking at the 50th anniversary launch of St. Joseph's Catholic Hospital at Nkwanta, also called for discipline among health workers as they contend with their rights, ethics, and the rights of their clients.
Please, we should be disciplined. I work at a place, somewhere in a facility, where a midwife had delivered a first twin. And she looked at the time, and it was 8 p.m. She has to close. So she left the second twin and left home. And the woman died with the second twin. Yes, you are right. You can close. But if you bring it to our ethics, is that discipline enough?
Reverend Sister Laurentia Georgina Kwesin is the administrator at the St. Joseph's Catholic Hospital at Nkwanta in the OT region. She says the health facility has enjoyed some help and support from the community and can only strive to improve upon its service delivery.
St. Joseph has always stood for the fact that somebody who is sick and comes here needs help before money. So prompt attention is given to the sick who come here.
From OT, let's get into the central region now. And parents of children with fragile or wishbone are calling on government to support the treatment of such children to relieve the burden on them. The parents say stigmatization, inaccessible public places, as well as the cost of taking care of such children is a major challenge that ought to be supported by government and the entire Ghanaian society. The parents have been speaking on the occasion of the World Wishbone Day. There's more in this report put together by Richard Kwijonyako.
Wishbone or osteogenesis imperfecta is an inherited disorder that's characterized by fragile bone that breaks easily. Children with wishbone like Ayeyi, who sings beautifully, and her colleagues who are very intelligent have special abilities that ought to be supported.
Oti region Savannah region Mango. Upper East
Managing children with such conditions is very difficult in Ghana because they require utmost care in their growth, medication, and education. In many Ghanaian societies, such children are mocked at, ostracized, and stigmatized against, making their growth very difficult. Parents and caregivers want the support of government for such children. Justina Yadomboache is founder, president of Osteogenesis Imperfecta Foundation, and a parent.
We are bleeding. We need support. Their care is not a one-way management system. It's a multidisciplinary approach. That is why we set up this OI clinic, and we have specialists coming across to help manage their issue. And so we need support. We need support in our educational structures. The educational structure doesn't favor their needs. For example, OI kids have short limbs. They have weak limbs, especially with their hands. And so if they are supposed to write 2-3 hour papers of exams, I mean, they can't do it. Why not restructure our educational policies or structures so that we can have more of oral examination for these kids? Accessibility is another major problem. We are calling on government, please. We know it is a law that we should have accessible buildings now, but its implementation is still very limited. And so we plead on government to assist us get to that point where a child with his or her wheelchair can move anywhere at any time and also have a feel of society.
Other caregivers and associates of children with wishbone believe government and the entire society could support such children to make life better for them.
It's not easy. I personally have had to be a caregiver for a chronic ailment in my family, and I know what it is. On a daily basis, you need strength, you need courage, you need all the positivity in the world to be able to stand and be there for the weaker ones.
Let's be careful about what we tell our children when they go to school. Let them not want to ostracize these children from school. It is a problem for the children and their parents. We shouldn't look down on them. It is not anything they've done. It is not anything their parents have done.
Most people in our communities, even here in Ghana, have little or no information about OI. This causes a lot of mothers and fathers in our villages and towns to disregard and abandon kids with this condition. And I strongly believe this is not supposed to happen because everyone has a right to life and to enjoy life.
A specialized multidisciplinary clinic known as the OI Clinic has been set up to support the needs of such children with wishbone and would be launched later. The OI Foundation has also been providing orthotics, that's mobility aids, to such children to aid their recovery. Last year, Ayeyi and the foundation together refurbished the children's playroom at the Cape Coast Teaching Hospital for all children who visit the hospital to aid their fast recovery. Reporting for Joy News, Richard Kwejenyako, Cape Coast.
Well, thank you for staying. This is where we cap off the news, but up next, the news review. Do stay. Thank you for staying with us. It's some 36 minutes off the top of the hour, and we have Suleimana Brahima, Executive Director, Media Foundation for West Africa, joining the conversation. Mr. Brahima, a very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, and thank you for having me back.
Thank you so much for your patience with us this morning. How's Monday treating you this week, at the start of the week?
Well, I suppose it's going to be a great week. The morning is fair and clear in terms of the weather, and we look forward to a great week. Unfortunately, over the weekend, we lost one of our great heroes, Honorable John Indebugri, which is a very sad development.
Yes.
And we pray for his soul to have a peaceful rest, and hope that as we go along, those of us who are young would have the bold and courageous spirit that he had to fight for generations and to fight for people of the North and also the entire Ghana.
Indeed. And I recall, an interaction I had with him some time back. It was really sad news to hear that the statesman, so to speak, had, left us. But it's the path we shall all take. That is why we have to do good deeds, do good things, serve the Lord, and hopefully end up with him when we pass on. But I want to run these two quick issues by you before we get into the newspapers. Some of the newspapers carry this as well, but I'm talking about the hike, 20% hike in transport fares. As per what we've been hearing, I mean, the TUC on one hand, not related, but the TUC has been talking about taking off petroleum taxes. Well, the transport unions are saying same, that you need to do some work on it, and now they're increasing their fares by 20%. What's your quick take on that? Because, I mean, there are so many dynamics to it. Fuel prices are going up, and ordinary people too don't see their salaries increasing any. So it's quite a tricky situation. What's your quick take on that?
Well, I think it's a reflection of the general economic situation in our country and the difficulties that people are going through. Right. This would have a significant toll on the commuting public, but at the same time, we need to also acknowledge that the cost of running the transport business has also gone up significantly. For example, fuel prices. We all buy fuel, and we know that over the course of the last few months, fuel prices have gone up significantly. The city has not been doing quite well, and that would mean that prices of parts for cars would also go up significantly. And so, as I said, it's a general reflection of the economic situation. People are going to bear the brunt in terms of the high cost of transport, but transport owners, I suppose, have also been enduring a significant cost in terms of maintaining their vehicles, running the vehicles in terms of the fuel cost and so on and so forth. I just think that as a country, we need to continue to do the best that we can in terms of leadership. People complain about the taxes on the fuel. The president, as I recall, had said, well, if we take off the taxes, we are going to lose so much. I think the general thing is, what are we using the taxes for? I believe that is what bothers a lot of people. It's not about how much we commit to taxes. If we see our taxes working for us, if we see our roads are done, electricity is on, water is running, schools are well set up, and all the other economic indicators that help improve living conditions of people. If we see all those things working, I believe people would even be happier if they are paying more. But unfortunately, we don't see that, and that is where a lot of people have concerns. So we have to continue to dialogue. We have to continue to work together and see how we can improve conditions for people.
While this is going on, the transport operators are saying they can't handle it anymore. They have to hike prices. You recall last year, in a sort of protest move, if you like, protesting, they decided not to hike fares, but to just have a blackout on a certain day. They went till mid-morning, and there were interactions, and they stopped. But is it justified that they also want to increase their transport fares, considering all the dynamics?
Well, I think it is, because as I said a while ago, the transport operators incur cost on running their businesses, cost in relation to fuel, cost in relation to maintaining the cars, cost in relation to paying drivers. And of course, these drivers, I suppose, will be demanding more because they also live within the same economy. They buy food, they buy items that are, increasing in terms of prices each and every day. And so everyone is demanding for more. And certainly the transport owners would have to also make ends meet. And to that extent, I think that they are justified. As a country, it's quite a shame that we haven't been able to develop the public transport sector in such a way that it could become a major boost, in terms of commuting, taking people from one place to the other. President Kufuor started what became known as the Kufuor buses, which I think was a very, very good start. But over the years, we didn't see a build-up on that. Under President Mahama, we saw the introduction of what I believe is called the Ayalolo buses, which I believe was an effort to also start complement the public sector transport system, but it didn't also turn out to be as efficient as it should be. So far, I don't think that we've made any...
Well, on that, when you speak of the Ayalolo, our bus rapid transport system or transit system, you go to other jurisdictions and you'll see why. We don't have designated lanes for them. You go to Ouagadougou in Burkina Faso, they have designated lanes for motorcycles and bicycles and the rest. So some of the problems we see here with Okada and the rest, they wouldn't see there. If you don't have a designated, route or road for your bus rapid transits or transport systems, obviously they'll have to compete with other buses on the road, which in the end makes no sense because that's the whole idea. So I just wanted to chip in that bit.
Yeah, exactly. I think, I believe it was under the Mahama regime or so when we started seeing some lanes being constructed in certain parts of Accra, specifically designated for the Ayalolo buses. But I don't think that over the years, there have been that significant governmental intervention to improve the road transport sector in terms of public intervention. As I said, the President Kufuor effort was quite significant. I think across the country, we saw those buses being introduced and the numbers were quite good. Till date, you still even see some of those buses serving communities in the hinterlands. And I believe that if subsequent governments had prioritized the public sector transport, we would have seen a major boost in that area. And that would have helped reduce cost for people, improve efficiency in road transport and all of that. But perhaps that has not been the priority for the governments after President Kufuor. And again, even the Kufuor intervention, we all saw the issues of corruption coming up. And I think our country is literally sick in almost every aspect. And we have to work hard towards improving really all the aspects. We have a full ministry for transport. And you ask yourself, what are we seeing? We have a full ministry for railways under this government. And people keep saying that, well, the railway sector is improving. But we want to see the real impact. We want to see the tangible and visible impact if the rail sector is improving. Again, that's another area. If people can commute by train from Accra to Tema or Accra to Sawam or Sawam to Accra, I believe it will ease the traffic on the roads. And sometimes the transport cost is also as a result of the heavy traffic on the road, something that a distance that should take you like 20 to 25 minutes. Sometimes you are on it for 2 hours, burning fuel, time being wasted and all of that. So the public sector transport agenda is something that we have to really prioritize as a country.
And just to wrap so we can focus more on the papers, I just wanted your thoughts on some of the matters we're considering this morning. You say a lot of things in this country do not make sense, and then we're focusing on the transport systems. How about this? Another matter that we're discussing today. Sprinter buses. I'm sure you've sat in one before at some point. You see how they operate. I mean, even without putting words in your mouth, what has been your experience with some of these Sprinter buses you have sat in the past? Just share with us before I even tell you what I'm about to say.
Well, I think that there's so much risk involved in those buses. It appears that there is a general notion that, if you want speed, if you want quick service, and so on, your best choice would be these Sprinter buses. And maybe because of that notion, the drivers who also use these cars overspeed, can be very reckless. And again, it's all because there is limited supervision. The regulations may be there, but are the regulations enforced as they should be? I doubt they are. And quite a number of times when I hear about road accidents, it happens that it involves many of these Sprinter buses and these urban trotro plying intercity. Normally the ones plying within the city, yes, you would encounter the reckless driving, the wrong overtaking, using wrong lanes to have a quick dash, and so on and so forth. But in terms of accidents that then result in casualties and so on, you witness a lot of that with these sprinter buses on the intercity routes, Accra, Kumasi, Accra, Cape Coast, and so on and so forth. So we need to do more, again, still on the private road transport sector.
And you've narrated it, in a spot on manner, over speeding, recklessness, sheer recklessness on the road. And you can guess what that results in: a lot of accidents. Now, there are some who are saying, let's restrict them to intra-city operation, not inter-city operation. What do you think about that?
Again, if our bus transport systems were working, like I said, when President Kufuor introduced these, what became known as the Kufuor buses, a lot of it was for intercity transportation. So, for example, there are some of those buses that until recently were plying Koforidua Boku, Koforidua Tamale, Kumasi Techiman, Accra Cape Coast, Accra Takrady, and all of that. But I believe that those buses that were procured during President Kufuor's era and the few ones that were introduced under subsequent governments have either all broken down or are no longer roadworthy. And so to restrict them to intercity and not allow them to provide the service that they are providing now would also be result in a lot of hardships for the commuting public, because it is not as though the cars are there, they struggle to find passengers for these intercity service that they provide. Sometimes people queue to wait for these cars. And so we have to consider the challenges and the difficulties that the public will face if we were to take that action. If we are to do that, then there must be some intervention to cater for whatever we would be losing in terms of services to the public. If we introduce more bigger buses, for example, if STC were to expand its service, its fleet, and be able to run all the intercity services that are required, why not? I think these buses can be limited to intercity. Yeah.
Well, Suleimana, let's start with the Daily Graphic newspaper now. And democracy must move beyond ballot box. Asantehene charges hosts. He hosts a Durbar in Memphis as well. And there is West Africa's dangerous tag, worrying. That's according to the CDS. The story is on page 16. Just a snippet of that. The chief of the defense staff, Vice Admiral Seth Amwama, has expressed worry that West Africa's potential to develop has been saddled with the unpleasant reputation of being the most dangerous region in recent times. Apart from the coup d'etats, the constantly evolving terror threat in the region made it even more worrying for governments in the region to harness the vast resources under a peaceful environment to enhance the well-being of the citizenry, he said. Then there's reduction in benchmark values. And just hold on for me, Suleimana. I'm just putting them together briefly so you can react to those that you'd like to react to. Reduction in benchmark values. State loses 9 billion Ghana cedis. And the government has not lost nearly 9 billion in revenue from taxes generated on imported goods as a result of the reduction in the benchmark values in the last 3 years. The amount was lost between April 2019, when the implementation of the policy started, and March this year, when it was reviewed. 3 topical matters. West Africa's dangerous tag, according to the Chief of Defense Staff. The state losing 9 billion on the back of a reduction in benchmark values, and democracy moving beyond the ballot box. Quick reactions, Suleimana.
Well, I think that, first of all, I would want to commend the Asantehene for his usual great interventions in our development and in matters of national interest. Indeed, democracy has to move beyond the ballot box, because so far that is where the trap that we are caught in. It's one election to the other. And after the 2020 election, I had a meeting with a number of diplomats. And one of the questions that came up quite strongly was, and this was in 2021, and the question was, why is the conversations in the country seeming like there's going to be another election this year or next year? Because it was all about, who is going to win 2024? 2024 would not be like we had in 2020 elections. We are going to win. Who is going to be the candidate? Who is not going to be the candidate? And so on and so forth, rather than focusing on what happens in between elections. I think there has always been that conversation that, yes, elections are just one bit of the democratic exercise. But what is even more important in a democracy is what happens in between elections. We are in a democracy not because we just wanted to have the process of electing our leaders. We are in a democracy because we believe democracy guarantees the freedoms, democracy guarantees participatory development, democracy guarantees accountability and transparency in governance, and democracy caters for the needs of the marginalized. So if for about 30 years now, our democracy is simply about elections and arrangements and plans and agenda about winning the next elections right after an election is conducted, then we would continue to be where we are in terms of development. And I think that Ghana has a significant potential to develop. And I believe in what President Akufo-Addo said when he was a candidate, that we are sitting on money and yet we are suffering. So I think that Asantehene is spot on that advice. And as a nation, we need to reflect on that. The state loses 9 billion. The question is, it loses it to who? So if benchmark values have been reduced and government is not earning as much as it would have earned, where is that going? Is it cushioning people? So the other question to ask is, have the prices or prices of imported commodities that would have attracted the benchmark values that the state has lost money in, has it reduced as a result of which people have been cushioned? In other words, if that policy had not been made, was it the case that people were going to pay more? And therefore paying less now means that people are benefiting from reduced prices as a result of that intervention. So I think we don't have to just look at it from the perspective of what government is losing or what the state is losing. The question is losing it to who? And are people benefiting as a result of that intervention? I think some of these statements or some of these headlines sometimes are just PR, sometimes propaganda pieces for the government to say that, government is not making so much money or government is losing this as a result of which we are in this difficulty or in that difficulty. And briefly, Ben, on the state of insecurity in West Africa, it's a very, very troubling development. It appears that we say we are fighting the menace, but increasingly we are getting into more and more crisis. It's important that we up our game on our governance systems, improve governance, improve transparency, accountability, and improve service delivery for the people so that we can mobilize people to be in support of these interventions to help kill this crisis that confronts us. Otherwise, if unemployment continues to rise and the young people will be prepared to take $1,000 and take the gun and become members of terrorist fundamental groups, then we are all in trouble. So our governments must up their game. We as citizens must also contribute what we can to improve the system.
Two quick stories I'd like to take a swipe at in Republic Press. The first one, Agenda 111 faces setbacks. We've heard from the health minister in recent times. He has listed a number of challenges, revealing that there are some, challenges facing the project, especially in Accra and Kumasi. Quoting him, "It is too early for me to predict whether we will finish or not. That is, complete the projects. But optimistically, this is what we want to do, and we try to push ourselves." This rhetoric is slightly different from what we were told a few months ago. We were told that we'll definitely be done with them by the end of our tenure. That is one story. The other story, you will not be president. Methodist priest, former prelate, tells Mahama as he challenges claims of repealing e-levy. And it's interesting because Methodist Bishop Bosomtwe Ayensu has criticized former President Mahama, saying he is out of touch with reality, and that the man of God has also questioned Mahama's decision to repeal the e-levy when he assumes office as president. And he's been saying you will not even get the nod to repeal it. How do you dilate on these two matters, Agenda 111, and then again on the Mahama story, the clergy wading into such utterances? How does that wash on you?
First of all, on the statement by the former, is it former bishop or
So he's a bishop. I think he's a former moderator for the church. He's a Methodist priest, so let's refer to him as such.
Well, I think that these people are Ghanaians. Sometimes the fact that we say the clergy they don't have to step into politics and even the issue about chiefs and all of that, I think that is becoming just a hypocritical stance. Look, let people express their views. Let people say what they think and provide reasons why they think so. So if this bishop thinks that, look, I don't think that President Mahama was a great leader, and based on certain promises that he made in the past, what he's claiming that he would do when he becomes president, I don't have confidence and faith in what he says. I think that he should express himself. To say that because he's a former bishop and so on and so forth, look, I think it's a hypocritical stance. Let people express their views and their thoughts. Let us engage them on why they think so and so on and so forth. If that's his view, I think so be it. At the end of the day...
So what people have taken issue with is that categorical stance, so to speak. You will not even be president to then come and take away the e-levy. I agree with you on this bit that everybody, regardless of where they are, should be free. Of course, there are some political positions that, of course, if you take up, you would be a bit nipped in. But I guess people are taking issue with the fact that he is being somewhat categorical. If he wasn't a good leader, you can attest to it as an individual. But when you suggest that he will not even get the nod, it is not up to you, is it? And sometimes that stokes the ire of the people against the church. Is that not the problem?
Well, that's up to the members of the church to decide that because my pastor or my bishop has said this, I'm going to quit. I don't think that we are in churches for politics. I believe that we are in churches for worshiping the Lord. And if the views of your pastor on the political landscape is what will make you quit a particular church, well, fortunately, there are all manner of churches around and people can decide to fellowship in whatever church they deem appropriate. But otherwise, to say that bishops and so on shouldn't express their views on our political landscape, I think that that would be quite censoring them. And there's a lot of censorship on different categories of people, except that anytime we talk about censorship, we look at the media. I believe that people should express themselves. Chiefs, bishops, academics, and so on should express themselves and express their views. It's your choice to decide to agree or disagree with what their opinions are. So for me, I don't begrudge this bishop for the statement that he has made. If he thinks that Mahama would not be president, so be it. Okay. On Agenda 111, Ben, I think that increasingly our Ministry of Health is proving itself to be one of the most non-transparent, very, very opaque ministries that we have. And that comes with the lack of transparency and accountability in the administration of our health sector. And I say this for a number of reasons. We all do remember during COVID, the agreement that was signed for this testing at the airport. And till date, I don't know who signed that contract. Meanwhile, it was a health intervention. The minister during his vetting said, I don't know anything about it, and so on and so forth. And over time, there have been quite a number of other developments that the minister and the ministry have tried to either, maneuver their way without providing whatever the concrete evidence is. Right. The very recent one involves a request that was made by Multimedia, your own group, to the ministry for information on Agenda 111, where they are cited, the costs, and so on and so forth. On 21st of March, if I recall correctly, the chief director of the ministry, signing on behalf of the minister, said that, the ministry does not have any information on Agenda 111. In fact, that was the report, the feedback, that was the response that was given to Multimedia, that the ministry doesn't have any information on Agenda 111. And some of us were wondering, if we're going to build 101 or so hospitals in our country, and the ministry in charge of the health sector says that it doesn't have information on Agenda 111 or that health intervention, then who has it?
Right.
So I tweeted a number of times asking a number of questions. Later, my information was that, or is that, Agenda 111 is a project that is being executed directly through the presidency. So the contracts are being awarded at the presidency. And in fact, I have discussed with a few colleagues in the office that we should then file a request to the presidency to ask for information on Agenda 111.
Right.
First of all, because the ministry says it doesn't have any information on it. And then secondly, we have information that it is being executed directly through the presidency. So the same minister who said we don't have any information on Agenda 111 is today the person who is saying a lot about Agenda 111, whether it's going to be completed, whether architectural designs are going to be modified, and whether, the issues about land acquisition in some areas and so on. So was the ministry, the chief director, who signed on behalf of the minister?
Right.
Was it the case that they were deliberately refusing to give the information? Was it the case that they were lying? Or it was just the case that they have, perpetrated these acts of opacity and non-transparent ways of doing things to the extent that they think, well, for almost everything, we should just indulge in these acts of not being transparent with the people. So perhaps multimedia should go back to the ministry to ask for the information now that we know that the minister and the ministry has that information that was being requested.
I'll tell you this for a fact. We are unperturbed, and like you're suggesting, if there's a trail, we shall follow it, sniff out the information, and let the public know what they ought to. Just to wrap with 3 headlines from 3 different papers, you can pick one to dilate on, and it's a wrap. Ghanaian Times, Ghana's oil production falls by more than 17%. That's according to PIAC. That's the first one. The Daily Guide says Ghana ranked 8th richest in Africa. It has to do with our GDP. And of course, we're doing better than... So our current value is 74.26 billion, putting us ahead of the Ivory Coast and Angola, whose economies were valued at 70.99 billion and 66.49 billion, respectively. And the final story, the Ghanaian publisher, Ghana needs over $412 million to eradicate malaria by 2025. Which is your pick? Quickly, and then we shall wrap.
Well, I think that all these are very important topics. The oil sector story, I think, is quite important, that our oil production capacity has dropped by 17%. I doubt it's because we don't have the volumes on the ground or wherever we are pumping the oil from. That it could be as a result of some mechanical issues and so on. But for me, the critical point has been when people ask, oh, so what is the difference between when we didn't have oil and now that we have oil in terms of fuel prices, in terms of the economy, in terms of money in people's pockets and so on and so forth. Of course, those of us who read know the contribution of the oil sector to our economy. And because this is coming from PIAC, I think that PIAC over the years has been revealing how the state has not been accountable for millions of oil revenues. And so far, it's been just revelation. And then the next time we wait for another revelation about how projects that were said to have been constructed with oil money are non-existent and cannot be mined. Contracts that were signed without transparency, and how we are unaccountable with our oil resources. I think, for me, the fundamental point remains, how are we going to be accountable for whatever resources that we have? And we are being told that we are becoming one of the richest in Africa, 74-point-something billion in GDP. Is that translating to the well-being and the welfare of the people? For me, that is what is critical. We are seeing inequality rising. What that means is that a lot more money getting into fewer pockets. And I think that is not something that bodes well for our society and our development and our cohesion. As much as possible, we should spread so that there will be some level of equity in our society.
Right.
And that's what I would say to these stories that you just read.
Suleimana Nagode, God richly bless you, and do have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much.
And that is Suleimana Brahima, Executive Director for the Media Foundation for West Africa. He joined us for a conversation. Up next, we serve you sports. Do stay. Thank you for staying with us on the AM show. Just to let you know that we're starting the conversation by talking about the 20% increment in transport fares. Later, we'll also be talking about sprinter buses, the spate of accidents and the role they play, and how we can nip that situation in the bud. But for now, let's talk about the 20% hike in transport fares. It's been brewing. We now have the transport unions joining us to dilate on this matter, find out what is happening. Some say they're implementing, some say they are not enforcing. What is happening and what is the way forward? How do we resolve the crisis? Joining the conversation to talk about this, we will be having David Agbuado, who is with the Concerned Drivers Association, and Godfred Abolbere, who is General Secretary of the GPRTU. They'll both join that conversation shortly. But in case you haven't heard, as of last weekend, we had that spike in transport fares. And there was a lot of talk about it. Some people were not even aware as they were hitting the road to board public transport. So here's what we're going to do. Before we start the engagement with our guests, we're going to activate the phone lines. Have you felt this entire change, the 20%? How much more do you have to pay now? And how does that rub off on you? How does that affect your finances? We'd love to know. Call that number that will be rolling on your screen, 0302-211-961 extension 2. We'll be rolling it on your screen so you can call and share with us what your thoughts are. We're starting engaging you early today, and it's all on the back of the transport fare increments. 20%. And mind you, we're in a situation where we're not seeing much of an increment, if any, when it comes to wages, public sector wages, private sector wages. So what exactly are we going to fork out the money out of to pay for these extras? Look, whether you're purchasing fuel, some are going for over 11 cedis when it comes to diesel per liter, mind you. Well, if you're paying transport fares, there's been, an incremental surge over the last how many months? It's been going on. So whether you're here or there, a private vehicle owner, or you're boarding public transport, you are going to be hit by these increments, whichever which way or however you look at it. So we'd like to hear from you, especially those of you boarding public transport. 20% increment in fares. How has that impacted you? And what are you looking forward to seeing as, an ordinary road user, someone who boards public transportation? Do call. The number is on your screen, 0302-211-691, extension 2. 0302-211-691, extension 2. We'll be getting our guests shortly to share their thoughts on this matter. But something else that has come up that feeds into the next conversation we're having, which has to do with the sprinter buses. I just saw this story in the Daily Graphic today, and I want to bring it up even as we have this conversation because it will definitely arise in the second belt. It has to do with insurance for Abubuyas. There's an interesting piece on page 10 of the Daily Graphic news paper. And they share, there is a thought shared there. This person got interactive with a number of people who drive Abubuya. Interestingly, a lot of them don't even operate with licenses. So interesting perspectives there. They don't have insurance. They don't have licenses. how do we get about this entire enterprise? Don't you forget, you can call in and share your thoughts. But let me start the conversation with Kojo Poku, energy analyst. He joins us thus far. Kojo, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm well, oh.
Good morning to you and your listeners and your viewers.
Thank you so much. Let's start with this latest increment, 20% in transport fares. The transport unions will be sharing their thoughts with us shortly. But for you, from where you sit, and on the back of the conversation we had last Friday, how monumental is it that transport fares are going up by 20%?
Have they gone up by 20% or they are to go up by 20%?
Well, it's a mixture of both, because from what we hear, some started implementing the 20%, others didn't. And there's a bit of a breakup when it comes to the transport unions. But one thing we're certain of is that some of them at least will hit us with 20%.
Exactly, because the reason I ask, because it's not just right. You know, some of these things, there's a process. And we keep going through this. The last time there was an increase, that was when we all saw a very big jump in the petrol prices, and they also had an increase. Since then, have we seen any major jump again? So I'll be surprised that they want to do another 20% off the back of what they did recently. You know, at times when something happens, we all support, because we felt, and I said it on your station, that there has been increase on increase on increase, and they have not done any increment. So yes, that increment was justified. But now, what is the justification for the extra 20% increase? I mean, what are you justifying with? Remember, we had this conversation as at last week and said that, look, if for anything, the real prices at the pump should come down. You understand? So for anybody to now start supposing that with an increase on 20%, it's just, for me, it's just Malaysia, because there's no justification for it.
You say for anyone to propose an increment of 20% in the fares is malicious?
Yes, because basically what I'm saying is that they only had an increase recently. And the recent increase they had was justified based on the world market prices that have gone up for years that they have not increased.
Right.
My point is, from the time they increased, so now, what has changed? Nothing.
Let me ask you, though, how long ago, because I recall the last one from last year, when they actually, hold on. I recall the last one from the tail end of last year, where they actually went on some sort of strike till around mid-morning, around 10-something, and they eased it up. Flowing from there through to this year, there hasn't been a major increase, if I would put it that way. There hasn't been a major increase.
Check your records. You have your technical...
No, I'm not saying that there has not been an increase. I'm saying there hasn't been a major increase.
GPLTU, there has been an announced increase where we all agree that that increase should happen. I think in March, there was an announced increase. March or April, thereabouts. I think it's March.
So I'll work on the percentage, but again, they are pointing to the fact, and not too different from what the TUC has been calling for. They are saying that inflation is going up. Inflation is inching towards 20%. That means, no, hold on. So that means that everything, the price of everything has shot up. But of course, their commodity that they deal with is fuel. The fuel itself, look, I purchase it. What has been the difference month on month? I mean, between, let's say, February till now, it's not gone down by much. I'm still buying at a certain, I'm just shedding a few pesos. Even the 15 peso bit that was touted, I don't know whether I've got a 15% or 15 peso rebate at the pump. Do you get it? So that is the reality for them. And you still say it's malicious, it's not justified?
No, you're not, please, let's discuss this thing well. Ben, if they are saying there's inflation, if they are saying there's that, then in every day there's inflation. Inflation has never stopped being zero. So why is it that it's now that they are talking inflation? Let's be honest with ourselves. Has inflation been zero in Ghana? No, it hasn't. Inflation has always been in the double digits. It's only recently that it came down to single digits. Has anybody cited inflation for increasing petrol fares, lorry fares in Ghana? Nobody has ever cited inflation. So why are you citing inflation now?
Just to get me clear, I wasn't saying that they are. I'm just tying it into what the TUC has been saying.
The main determinant for increasing petrol fares is the cost of fuel. What I am saying is that in recent months, about 3 months ago or 4 months ago, there was an increase. We all supported it. Okay? GPLTU announced, and all the unions announced an increase. Now, like I said, you can check your records from the exact day this increase happened. We all supported it. Now, between that time and today, what has been the change in petrol price? That's the point. One thing is that all these things that me and you and Duncan discussed last week, and I pointed it out clearly, that there is no justification for any increment this window. Because if you look at the numbers, the actual numbers, prices are supposed to go down. Now, if somebody sits there and say, oh, because of this, I want to increase, then there's always every week they should come and tell us because of this, then they should increase prices. Because at times they quote the spare parts go up or so. Sometimes they quote dollar. Sometimes they quote petrol. Sometimes they quote insurance. Taxi fares and lorry fares, they can always quote other things why they want to increase prices. But the reason is that there's a process. They have to go to the Ministry of Transport and sit with them. And then when the committee that deals with that shows there's a justification, then an agreed percentage is done. You can't use your own right and say, look, I'm increasing transport fare. We all know the process. So if some have done it and some have not done it, we can't say that it's going to be done. Because there are numerous times when they've been meeting, and after the meeting, they realize that they don't have a strong case to increase fares. So let's not encourage some of these things where people can unilaterally just start and distort the system as we have it.
Do hold for me, Kojo. Let me take the thoughts as well of David Agbado, his spokesperson for the Concerned Drivers Association. Mr. Agbado, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you too, and good morning to all the listeners listening to us this morning.
Right. Curious. I'm very curious. Have your drivers increased fares by 20%?
Yes.
You have?
We have.
On the back of what? Because it appears this is not a uniform decision across the board. So on the back of what did you increase the fares?
Okay. When somebody say it's not uniform, I would say no, it is not so. It's very, very uniform. Because it is Coalition of Commercial Transport that met and come out with this decision. As I speak with you, it is not only...
You say it is a coalition for what? Just to clarify.
Coalition of Commercial Transport Operators.
Okay.
That met and took this decision last week, Friday. And we started it Saturday. As I speak with you, it still continues. We are still taking it. If you ask why warrant this, things that we are using in terms of transport now, everything has tripled. And if care is not taken, we will lose our business and we will lose our livelihood. As I speak with you, even government-owned entities like State Transport Corporation, formerly AFLAU, they were charging 39 cedis per head. As I speak with you, they are taking 51 cedis. Government-owned institutions have upped their price. So if we do it, it's not anything wrong because we want to protect our interests.
I am interested in the components that you spoke of, which have all increased, on the back of which you also want to increase. But so you're stating at this juncture that just because a government institution has changed its prices, you ought to do same? It is valid for you to do same?
This thing is very, very critical. Let me tell you something. You see, transport industry, if you didn't stand well, before you realize, if you have a fleet of cars, like 100, you can't even get one. Let me take you back. Do you know about OSA? Or have you heard about OSA before?
About what?
OSA.
Oh, yes,
bus.
yes.
Have you heard about City Express before?
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard about even current one, Metro Max?
Yeah.
Are they not fading off? But running transport is something very, very serious and very, very hectic and tedious. If you didn't stand fair, you run at loss.
But you've still not answered
That is why this Friday decision was taken.
So you've still not answered my question. You're saying that if a state transport agency can up fares or push for increments, then for you, the private groups as well, you should be able to do the same. I just want that understanding.
We are not taking cue from the state transport, but I'm using it as an example for you to see that even we commercial transport, government transport have done it. We commercial transport, we can do it.
Okay. Let's get back to the point of, you mentioned that a lot of components have changed, for which reason it justifies your increment in fares. Can you point out the different components that have changed for us?
Yeah, the components are many, but I'll mention only 4.
Right.
Spare parts have increased.
Spare parts.
Okay. The fuel itself. Lubricant.
Okay.
And then tires. Let me use only that one.
So spare parts, tires.
I'm not going to talk of dollar and other things so that you will say because dollar and that. No. Let me use the local one. The lubricant, the spare parts, the tires, and then the fuel price itself.
All right, let's take out the fuel for now, and let's focus on spare parts, tires, and lubricants.
Okay.
Can you quantify the sort of increments they have had, for which reason they justify this upward adjustment? I mean, were you buying something for maybe 100 cedis and now on the market, usually you would get it for X price, for which reason you're saying that you simply cannot sustain your business?
Yes. Many. Let me start it from here. Let me use the most common cars that you can see on our road these days. The Benz bus that we call Sprinter buses. And then Toyota Hilux. These 2 cars, I'm going to use them as an example. Sprinter bus engine was sold at, let me quote the old currency, because for this place, I normally quote the old currency, 110 million. Now it's going for 140 million. Engine.
So 110 to 140.
40.
So basically 11,000, now 14,000.
Exactly.
Okay.
When you come to launch up of the same Sprinter bus, it was going for 130 or 140, but now it's 220 and 240 respectively.
Okay.
The same car, gearbox, that was going for 1,005. Now it's 3,400.
1,005 to 3,400. That's an increment of about 1,900 cedis.
Yeah. Steer rack, back hazard, even the plate that they used to mold, when we go into bodyworks, we use the governance plates that we buy.
Right.
Have also rise abnormally. Formerly, it was 140, but now it's 320.
140 to 320. Right. 180 cedis on top.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when I want to mention the past, let me go to the same Toyota Hilux that I called for you. Toyota Hilux that we normally call Toyota Fish in our circle. Toyota Fish, the engine was 9,000. As I speak with you, it's 13 and 14,000. 9,000, but now it's 13,000 and 14,000 respectively.
Okay, so it is interesting, and I'm very grateful that you've taken the time to break down some of these figures for us. Just hold for me. I want to bring in Kojo Poku, who is an energy analyst and operates in this space. Kojo, you've been listening to him. You were asking for reasons justifying another adjustment. You just heard from Mr. Agbado giving you some of those reasons. Justified?
Ben, let me bring it to your attention. On the 23rd of February, there was a 15% increase in fares across the country. Are you aware of that? Hello?
I'm listening to you, Kojo. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm just trying to come because we had this thing where you're saying since last year there has not been any increase. I'm saying that.
Kojo, don't misquote me. I stated categorically when you made mention of that, I corrected and said that it is not that there has been no increment. I said I was referring to major increments.
So there has been 15% increase in fares in February.
Right.
Okay. Now, nobody is denying. I have a car, you have a car. We all go and buy these cars, and we know how much prices are inching up. Nobody does not want to sound insensitive. But I keep always saying, there are two sides to a coin. One side is that, look, if we do run a business and there are challenges that we face, Everybody does the same thing with their business. You adjust a few things here and there and see how you can basically get by. In February, you had a 15% increase. Now, between February and now, agreed, there has been a little adjustment in the fuel prices. Now, based on what your operations are, you have to sit with government, who basically, which Ministry of Transport, who mediate some of these things within the unions and ourselves, to have that conversation. You cannot unilaterally increase prices. But because if we want to keep saying things that are going up, shock absorbers and all these things, I know you know, because you buy them as well. So I'm not saying that people are not going through challenges with their businesses. All I'm saying is that let's not make it seem that there has been no increment this year, because there has been 15% increase earlier.
Okay, so valid point you're making, Kojo. Let me come back to Mr. Agbado. You've heard Kojo Poku and the concerns he shares. We're all feeling the pinch, all of us. So is it justified? Are you being fair to the ordinary Ghanaians by hiking your prices by 20% again after taking 15% in February? Hello, Mr. Agbado.
Hello, my boss.
Did you get that question?
No, sir.
All right. So I was saying, Kojo Poku says that we're all feeling the pinch. For you, private, drivers, for those in the public sector, for me, hitting the road in my own vehicle, we are all feeling the circumstances. So after taking 15% in February, why are you going ahead to hit the traveling public with another 20%? Are you not being insensitive?
No, we are not being insensitive. You see, the fuel, I don't want to use any other component so that people will be talking. This fuel is what everybody knows. The fuel is no more 799, rather 1130. So that alone tells you, if we didn't do it this way, we will run at loss. The fuel alone.
So are most of your vehicles running on diesel?
The commercial ones, I would say 90% of the commercial vehicles are running on diesel.
Okay,
it's only the taxi cabs that are, some are diesel, but most of them are petrol.
All right, hold for me quickly. Kojo, did you hear that point? A lot of their vehicles are running on diesel. We know that LPG prices have been sinking, but when it comes to petrol and diesel especially, some fuel pumps over 11 cedis. So that is the justification there, even when you're looking at fuel. Diesel was not at 11 in February.
No, it wasn't at 11 in February. I agree with you 100%. But the point is, we all know that these high prices are temporarily. These high prices are not going to be there for the next 2 months. I can assure you that in the next 2 months, we will not still have these high prices. The hike in fuel prices is causing the economies around the world to crash. The world economy cannot sustain the high prices that fuel and gasoline and diesel is at now. The crude oil inching up to 111 towards 120. The world economy can't sustain it. So it is something that if we base our calculation on that and go and hike, are we going to give the Ghanaian public a reduction when now 2 months down the line, fuel price comes down to, let's say, 9 cities or 8 cities? Are we going to do a reduction in prices? No, we are not. So that's what I'm saying, that within within this volatile period, let's all hold our breath a little. Go through the 2-3 month period of all we know is going on around the world. And things will normalize maybe after the second quarter.
All right. Very valid point again that you make. And I want to put that to you, Mr. Agbado. We know that when transport fares go up, they practically never come down. So Kojo Poku's reasoning is that this is not going to last for too long. We know about the diesel situation, especially on the back of what is happening between Russia and Ukraine and the challenges involved. This is not going to be a long-standing problem. So why don't you just accommodate this for about another month or two? Prices will stabilize, and then we can take it from there. Because once you push prices up, they will not come down. What do you think?
He says his part, but it's not so. Before Russia and Ukraine war, increment of fuel prices have been coming. Or is it not so?
True.
So if you are justifying with Russia and Ukraine something, I don't take it. Because even before then, things are going up. Now, even Ukraine and Russia, even this time, it's not going up like how it was formerly. Let me cite an example before we increased the lorry fare the other time. By then, Ukraine and Russia didn't start anything. We were buying fuel at 6 cities, 30 something. It rise from 6 cities to 799. Was Russia and Ukraine fighting then? So me justifying our situation with Russia and Ukraine, I don't see anything behind it. I don't see any good thing behind it.
Let me ask you, you say that the Coalition of Commercial Transport Operators, is that the correct name?
That's correct. That's correct.
All right. The Coalition of Commercial Transport Operators met and you decided on the 20% increment.
Yes.
Which unions form part of this group? Is the GPRTU in there?
Let me mention only 5.
All right.
GPRTU.
Right.
Concerned Drivers Association of Ghana. Ghana Committed. ProTour. True Drivers Union. JAP2. Ghana National Cargo Drivers Association. Ghana National Tipper Drivers Association. Just few.
So how many are you in all? You don't have to name them, but how many are you in all?
We are 16 in number.
15?
16, 16.
16. Right. And how many of you agreed on this latest increment? How many of you?
The court will say unanimous.
So all of you did?
All.
Why then is it that we're hearing that some groups are not willing to enforce the 20%? I mean, it gives, if they did not dissent then, why are they dissenting now?
I didn't get your question.
So you say it was unanimous to
Yes.
increase by 20%. But we
Yes.
hear some unions have not increased or enforced the 20% increment. Can you explain why?
Some union, like each of the unions.
We've heard
Because
that some of them
as
haven't. That's why I was asking you about the GPRTU.
As I just said, GPRTU have increased it. Even I'm at La Paz Terminal right now. I'm not checking on concerned drivers. So I'm checking on other unions. GPRTU have increased it. Cooperative has increased it. ProTour have increased it. Tiger have increased it. There's GPRT, La Paz, one terminal that I'm talking of. Everybody over here are taking it. So the unions that haven't started, it was only the Saturday, if you ask, I would say yes. It didn't go across board then because the communique doesn't reach some of the areas and then some of the regions. So from yesterday up to today, everywhere they are taking it.
Let's address a quick issue. There's also this problem with the increments. Let's say 20% is about 22 pesos. You would find that your people would roll over to the next, the closest figure, maybe 25 pesos. Some would even go to maybe 30 pesos. How are you addressing such problems? Because it causes untold hardship for ordinary people who have to board the trotro and the other public transport, the taxis and the rest, because already 20%. So it means that in effect, when you look at it, it will be more than the 20% depending on how much the person was paying before. How are you addressing these issues?
We are doing it. If it is 20 pesos, we advise our drivers to take the 20 pesos. If it is like, it is it's on 2 foods. When it is like 4 cities, 90 pesos, they sum it up to 5 cities. But when it is 5 cities, 10 pesos, then they bring it to 5 cities. That's how it's been done all this year.
So it is a plus or minus situation.
That's it.
But can't you find a standardized way? Because you see, the person who may have to pay 5 cedis, 10 pesos, will be plying a certain route. The other person who has to pay 4 cedis, 85 pesos, who will be charged 5 cedis, will always ply that route. It means one may gain, the other person will lose. And that's the problem. How do we standardize this to ensure that people can pay exactly what they have to?
It's because of the change. That's why it is like that. And it has been the standard, or it has been the norm. See, if 10 pesos, you lose it, in our field, it's money. But if you lose it and you will not go fighting over it, you know that because of 10 pesos, somebody's eye in our station here, got damaged, 10 pesos. So you take it off and be free of those injuries.
What would it take to bring down this latest increment? What will it take?
To bring down this increment?
Yes, this latest increment. You've already started enforcing it, but what will it take to bring fares down again? I mean, maybe to what they were like before this 20% increment. What would it take?
Oh, it will be very serious something. Because even if the fuel comes back to 7 cedis 99 pesos, will the tire price, will the battery price, will the lubricants and other things come down back to where it was, or the spare parts come down to where it was? No. So for this thing, you see, we are very, very, very cautious of that. If you could recall, drivers were saying some taxes must be scrapped off, or something must be done to it. Like example, you see, recently they reduced some 4 pesos on fuel, and price stabilization was 1 cedi down. Energy sector or some of the taxes were 3 cedis or 3 pesos, 1 peso and 3 pesos respectively were removed from them. You see, they can do something. You see, it's not all the taxes or the one that you are taking right will do all that you need. You have to start by, marginalizing it some way, somehow, so that it will cushion the Ghanaian public. We know that if we import, we increase transport fare even by a peso, everything changes. For instance, the last increment, cement was sold for 440 cedis, 440. It's now 590, 580. All because we have increased transport fare. We know all these things, even tomatoes. A ball, a little like Agbelikaklo, is going for 2 cedis.
So you're telling me, Mr. Agbado, that, I mean, there was a 15 peso increment. If you're telling me that, you're telling me basically that if prices even went back to the 7 cedis, 90-something pesos or 50-something pesos, and the prices of spare parts, lubricants, and others fall to the levels they were at before, let's say in January or December, you would still be unable to do anything about this latest increment?
No.
Right. Hold on
Ben,
for me.
Can I come in?
Yes, I was just about to come to you. Hold on for me, Mr. Agbado. I'll come back to you for summary comments as we wrap the conversation. But for you, Kojo.
Quickly. Wait, Ben, look, let me give this education to all your listeners and your viewers. People keep saying that prices of fuel didn't increase because of the Ukraine-Russia war when it started. Look, what you and
I think the point he was making, Kojo. I think the point he was making, just to get it.
And a lot of people make that point. Look, the Russia started sending its tanks to the borders of Ukraine in March last year. Okay, March 2021 is when Russia started sending its tanks to Ukraine border. The world market prices started agitating from that point. So if somebody thinks that prices just only went up because when they invaded, no. Prices started going up March last year. Now, you look at the trajectory, anybody can take the build-up of prices from last year till now. It will tell you that the minute Russia started moving its soldiers to the border of Ukraine, the world market prices started inching up. So it has been a gradual increase from March last year till this year. The bit where we had a big jump, okay, which was the $130 per metric ton, which is the $150,250 per metric ton for gasoline, and $130 per barrel crude oil, was when they actually did the invasion. So when the war actually started, there was a big jump. But let everybody know that the world market price was not standing still when Russia was massing its tanks at the border. So this war did not start this year. It started last year, March. So don't let anybody think that, oh, let's not blame the Russia-Ukraine war because price has been going up. Price has been going up since last year, March. Okay? So when people use that as an analysis, it's the truth. It is not that somebody, because we don't have our own supply of crude oil. Even if we did have our own supply of crude oil, it's not enough to meet our demand. So we have to import. And when you are importing, you use the benchmark prices in the world. And if the benchmark prices in the world goes up, we don't have any option that the local prices have to go up. That's the truth. So let's not people think that, let's not use Russia-Ukraine war as an excuse. It is the fact. Without that, why would somebody sit in their house and just increase price of fuel?
Right. So two quick things to look at. In our economic situation, fuel prices, barring deregulation and anything related to it, fuel prices have gone up and have not come down. It is only when there are incredibly serious situations, crucial situations, that we see like government intervening and saying there's going to be a 15% window for you, which we saw in recent times. I just interacted with Mr. Agbado, and on the back of the point you made that their fares also go up and don't come down, he says once it goes up, it will not come down, no matter what changes are effected as far as the economy is concerned. How do you think we can deal with, first of all, do you think it's an appropriate stance? And secondly, how do we deal with this situation? How do we ensure that when prices of items go up, we can have the fares go up, and when they fall, we can have the fares fall?
Well, that's why I keep saying that Ghana, we have a sword that doesn't cut both ways. There is instances with petrol prices, which me and you discussed last week, where the OMCs refuse to reduce their prices when they have to. The sensitivity with which they use to increase prices is not the same sensitivity they use to decrease prices. Now, if you sit and you see that there is a slight change in dollar upward, a slight change in fuel prices upward, you quickly increase the prices. That same sensitivity with which when you see that there's a slight reduction in both factors, you also reduce. But they don't do that. And as he clearly stated, if other factors like car tires, spare parts, lubricants, everybody selling these things always want to look at their profit. Okay? So when the same circumstances, the factors they use to increase these prices come down, they refuse to basically reduce them because they want to make the windfall. That is the problem in Ghana. But I also, in a way, blame government because some of us has at any point in time said that, look, the petroleum sector, the downstream, is the one single important area that government should have an eagle eye on. Because when there is little disturbance, all these things happen. But some people just don't care. You see, sometimes I think I care too much as an individual. Because I will try to arrange meetings, I will try to make some phone calls and say that, look, you guys should pay attention to these disturbances. Because if you allow these things to increase, there's no coming back. And everybody sits aloof. And these things happen. That is why I have constantly called that we should cap the margin of the OMC. Deregulation in this time should be suspended. In the UK, the business secretary, which is Mr. Honorable Kwateng, has suspended the deregulation in the energy prices. He's capped energy prices for households because he realized that if you leave companies to determine the prices based on the liberalized regime, then households will not be able to afford the energy. So he's capped it. Why can't we do the same in Ghana in this extraordinary time? These are not ordinary times.
Okay. Mr. Agbado, I have two very quick questions for you. They may not fall directly under your purview, but I want to get your take on them because you may not be with us in the next conversation. So two quick ones. The Aboboya, do you have any of them who are members of any of your unions?
No.
You don't have any of them there?
No.
Are you concerned, though, as spokesperson for the Concerned Drivers Association? Reports are that quite a number of them have expired roadworthy, certificates. And of course, when it comes to insurance, that one, Yamutu. Are you concerned about such a situation on the back of the accidents we've been seeing?
Yes. Even we have do something about it recent time.
Okay.
They are now a motorist or they are into our business now. And they must ensure to have their insurance and everything fixed. Because accident doesn't have a home. that today we will blow, that today I blow, I'm coming. No. And they are mingling with us on the streets and the roads of both the cities and then the rural areas. So there must be, even if not the assemblies, the police must take as a duty, to impound them. You don't send them to court. When you arrest them, force them to do it. Because it is not with it. It's now a new thing. And even some of the riders doesn't have even a rider's license. Some of the riders of this Boboya or tricycle doesn't have license.
Right.
So this thing must be done by police, and even we, some of the association, we must take it on and then educate them to do the right thing.
Okay. The second issue, and it's a conversation that my colleague Bernice Abubeido Lanza will be having, but again, we will not have you on that conversation. So I just want to find out from you. You mentioned when you were talking about your union and the fact that a lot of you use diesel and the rest, you mentioned Sprinter buses. A lot of them seem to be involved in accidents in recent times. A lot of them are complicit when it comes to overspeeding. Are you aware of this? What are you doing about the situation?
We are aware of it. And now the Coalition of Commercial Transport, the other time we met, we said now those that are applying the long distance, we should give them logbook in which we are working on it. We haven't finished and we haven't piloted it. So I cannot say anything about it now, but we are working on it to get it done. Because the accident with Sprinter buses these days, you see, because the bus itself is very slicky, very, very fast. And, as useful as some of the drivers are, they use that useful and exuberance and then be driving anyhow. We are talking to them too, but it's human nature. We'll keep doing it. We'll keep, advising or talking to them. So that logbook thing has been accepted and we incorporate it. I think it will minimize it.
There is a suggestion that you operate intra-city, not intercity. How do you respond to that as Sprinter buses? There is a suggestion that you should be restricted. How do you feel about that?
For that one, I will not comment on it. The reason why I will not comment on it is that, you see, we don't have enough buses that will do their service. Understand? Because the high occupant buses, they are also involving in accidents. The whole thing is education and then the education and then measures that will let those things minimize.
Okay, all right. Mr. Agbado, we are very grateful that you
But
joined.
I have one quick suggestion.
Okay, what is it?
You see, we are all reading news and other things from elsewhere. We have the refinery. Whilst by then we don't have the crude. Now we have the crude, and all is being repatriated to other countries before it. Some countries doesn't have crude. Even Ghana itself, when we have the refinery, we refine for our other sister African countries. Where can't we, renegotiate and then oil refinery will start work? Even if it's not working, we are paying toll recovery daily. Let it work before we pay for it. So that's my simple suggestion, that we should do something about this thing so that we have the crude being refined here. We have the bitumen, we have so many things to, do our roads and other things. It's not only the crude, but the benefit out of it will help Ghana as well.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Agbado. David Agbado is spokesperson for the Concerned Drivers Association. Kojo, in some 30 seconds, your final thoughts, and we'll move on.
Well, for me, you remember in his final thought, he's saying that government should do roads. Now, the taxes that everybody wants scrapped is what government used to do roads. Now, everybody wants to now say that government should reduce taxes. I don't know whether we've gone past that conversation. Let's holistically look at the problem. For me, like I said earlier, government seems to be just taking a back seat on this thing. We should be front and center in the pricing and the circumstances that affect it. We should do more. Government should do more to make sure that prices do not escalate the way it's going.
Okay. Thank you, Kojo. Kojo Poku is an energy analyst. And that's how we wrap this belt of the big stories. But coming up next, stay with us because we want you to share your experiences as well. as far as the Sprinter buses are concerned, how do they, carry you to and fro over speeding, accidents, and should we restrict them? That conversation up next on the AM show. Stay.
Good morning. Thank you for joining the AM show, and thank you for staying on as well. Benjamin Akapo, my colleague, just had a conversation on fuel price increment. We stay in the transport sector, but this time we're talking about safety. And there have been calls over the years for Sprinter buses to be restricted to intra-city transport services. And to help us have that conversation this morning is Cecil Gabra. He's a transport consultant and CEO of Top Tech Logistics, and Dr. Godfred Achia Dakwa, who is also a transport consultant. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time here this morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for joining the program. Now, let me start with you, Mr. Gabra. I mean, we've had conversations on road safety and the quality of vehicles that ply our roads all the time. This time round, the conversation is being quite specific. It's about restricting Sprinter buses to intra-city and not intercity transportation. We just heard from the Concerned Drivers Association, and the claim is that that will not be possible because most of the vehicles in this country used for transport services are Sprinter buses. Your initial thoughts on this conversation we are just about to start having?
Well, so good morning once again.
Good morning.
Hello, I hope you can hear me.
I can hear you, Mr. Gabra.
Okay, all right. Okay, so I think we've all had it wrong from the beginning, right? Because when you talk about the transport system, the buses that you see on your screen, not all of them should be picking passengers. If you look at Europe, for instance, where most of this are coming from, especially in Germany, most of them are used to carry lightweight, like plywood, like, very, very things that are not too heavy, okay? Lightweight goods, all right? But then sadly, they come to Ghana and nobody checks this. They convert such buses and put in angle iron seats. And angle iron is very, very heavy, so it actually defeats the whole purpose of carry the lightweight and then rather make it heavyweight. Okay, so that's number one. Two is that the weight of the vehicle is there. I mean, you must not carry more than the weight, but because of the angle iron seats, right, it makes it heavier, and then it makes the other thing is that the passengers will make it much more heavier with goods and so on. So it's all wrong from the beginning. That's what I'm saying. Right now, these vehicles have very powerful engines, so when they are speeding fine, they can go all the way. However, I have always said it that we must practice what other countries are doing. For instance, when you go to Cote d'Ivoire, they have certain zones. Taxis and trotros cannot, run past maybe La and go to Osu. These are buses that will be running around La or around Osu or maximum La, Osu and Accra. Okay, they don't travel because when they travel, they bring a lot of problems. Now, my advice is that we need a transport audit as soon as possible, right? And I've said it several times. What is this transport audit? We need to find out not even only the Sprinter buses, starts from OA, VIP, and so on, whether they are all qualified to operate. What vehicles are they using? So this GPRTU issue on the Sprinter buses, I've always said that it is not the best, and we still have to look at it and then zone them so that we'll be free from road crashes, which is on the increase. Right? When we zone them, that really means that no bus can, go to Nsawam to kill people or travel out of Accra to Tema, especially on the motorway. And traffic audit shall include the driver, who drives the vehicle. We need 2 drivers, and all those drivers must produce their licenses. We need to find out their records. We need to look at the vehicle itself and then examine it properly, not the DVLA examination, but I call this transport audit. There's a long list, and for TV purposes, let me just use these 2 important ones.
All right, so let me just take Dr. Godfred Achiadakwa's initial comments also. So if I get you right, Mr. Gabra, you're saying that, to start off, we don't even need these sprinter buses on our roads in the first place because many of them are converted and are doing the jobs that they're not supposed to be doing in the first place. Dr. Godfred Achiadakwa, do you agree?
Hello.
Hello, Doc. We can hear you.
Yes. I'm greeting my brother, Mr. Gabra. Yes, what he's saying is perfectly right. The Mercedes-Benz vehicles have very high-powered engines, and as that for that matter, they can speed excessively. Here, we don't understand overspeeding and excessive speeding as a root cause of most of the accidents or crashes we carry in our road in Ghana here. You can see that about 67% of the causes of road crashes are as a result attributable to overspeeding. So if you have a high-powered engine powering a light body vehicle, you can just imagine the results. I also agree with him that these vehicles were manufactured for specific use, and he mentioned some. And those include the delivery services and the carriage of light goods. They are not meant for carriage of passengers. We have the vehicles that are made to carry passengers, and if you want to do the truck business or long distance businesses, those are the buses. When they come to the country, they use it for that purpose. But we can't convert the use. You can't change. You can't convert the use. When you do that, we are calling problem for ourselves. And one thing I've noticed is that most he was also talking about the vehicle audit. Perfect. And that will have been a role being played by the Road Transport Authority. That for ages people have been hammering that there should be a road transport audit, because that would coordinate all these issues. It is not even only the vehicle audit that they will do. That is a huge exercise to be done. They have to also do the road audit, because we have either the road and then the vehicle component also inviting this form of crashes. So he's right, and I go by what he's saying, and we have to look at that. Again, if someone also tells me that the sprinters, when they go intercities or intracity, they cause most of the accidents, I don't have that stuff yet. I would have hoped that this discussion should have brought in the MTT who did those research.
Yeah. So okay. So just to interject you, Doc, so you can just proceed. There's a story on Peace FM Online, and it was on the 15th of May 2020. That's just almost a year ago. And the Kibi Divisional Commander of the MTT, the DSP Henry Ajaman, said sprinter buses must be stopped from going on long journeys. They are the cause of most of the accidents on our highways. The drivers love to overspeed very carelessly most of the time and end up causing needless deaths. The way to go to reduce accidents is to ban this type of commercial vehicles from embarking on intercity travels. And he made this statement when he was given updates on an accident that claimed some 8 lives. And so definitely, yes, we would need to speak to the MTTD on this, but we do have the basis and the facts that these sprinter buses are causing most of the accidents on our roads, just by way of information, sir.
Okay, I would say is that person's observation, although it's the division commander, is that the totality of holistic from the MTT research department. Let them come up with them, give the holistically. Because we talk about sprinters buses being involved in the accident, is it an exclusive? Let's look at all other vehicles. The big buses, they're involved with accident. A whole lot of people also are killed. Do you also say we should ban them? Do you also say that heliplanes, when they don't normally have crashes, but when one crash occurs, many people die. So we should ban heliplanes. We don't do that. So there should be a scientific proof of all those things. We should see the research papers, then interrogate it and look at the basis of those research. Then we can come out emphatically. But one person's statement cannot be used holistically. That's what I want to say. And then two, since most, you see, when the police superintendent or whoever who was talking made mention of a particular, he was talking about overspeeding. Why overspeeding? I mentioned it. My friend they also mentioned it. Why overspeeding? I want to say here emphatically, in Ghana, the concept of the larger population speak Akan language. I want to say that language safety is not in our vocabulary. It is not in our vocabulary. So it is not in our moral fiber. It is not in our attitude. I've interviewed so many people to give me the account word for safety. It's a foreign word. So safety is far from the way we see it. So unless we do a lot education for people to imbibe safety as part of their culture, as part of their attitude, as part of their language, that will also help solve the problem. If you can ban the sprinters, and if it is speed we are talking about, there's also speed.
All right, Doc, very interesting statement you make there. Is it that you are not satisfied with the mode of education? Is that what I'm getting, that we do too much of our safety education in English and so people don't understand it? Is that the sense?
Yeah, that is one. Education is not enough.
Okay.
Road safety is never enough in this country. Look, when we increase road safety education, road crashes reduces. It is clear. It was how do you call it? As confirmed in 2015. The moment we increase road safety education, road crashes reduce. One, and I'm talking about the word safety in general. Safety, the word safety, it is not in our moral fiber. The word safety is not in our attitude. The word safety, it is not in our language. And therefore, people do not see it well. How many times have people spoken about safety on the media, in the classrooms, and whatever? But still, people do overspeeding. It means that they are not catching it well. So the education should emphasize the philosophy and the scientific meaning of safety, so that people can get it right and they will stop those unnecessary overspeeding and high speed that they are doing on the road.
All right.
You understand?
All right.
And I want to emphasize, my dear, I want to say this one for you. I emphasize that. I've said it, I'm saying it again. Road safety education in the country is far, far, far below that because we don't do it. The laws are there, but nobody wants to implement it. And we need to look at that critically and increase education of drivers, and that will reduce the carnage or the frequent accidents on our roads.
Mr. Gabra, there are those who say that people will always break the law, and that's why the law is put in place to serve as a form of restriction of people's attitudes and behavior. I remember some years ago I had a conversation with you and we spoke about some speed limits technology being introduced for public transport on our roads. Yes, there are indisciplined drivers. Yes, people are careless on our roads. But let's look at the bit of the role of the DVLA in licensing and allowing or approving these types of vehicles to be on our roads. So you sit in a Sprinter bus and there are no seat belts. Only the driver has got one. Sometimes 18, 20, 25 people cramped up in that vehicle, and you are wondering, when at all will we decide that we want to take the person seated in that vehicle, we want to put premium on their lives. We want to respect the human dignity, because the people really have no choice but to use these because they are approved. Hello? Do I have
Yes,
Mr. Gabra on? Yes.
Yes, I'm here. Yeah, right. I'm saying that it's now time for DVLA to look at such registrations, especially of Sprinter buses. Because if you look at the original bus that picks up passengers, all those buses have got seat belts in them. Okay, their seats are very different. They are not, I wouldn't say they are not local seats as such, but then the seats have been, manufactured to save lives. It has got the headrest. Talking about headrest protects every human being from the whiplash injury. But you sit in the trotros, the sprinters, they don't have what I'm calling, what I just mentioned. That's the headrest. And that, yes, the headrest. The headrest, if you open it up, it's made up of fiber and certain materials. And that should tell you that, hey, look, the manufacturer deliberately, manufactured this to protect lives. But then if the vehicle comes to Ghana as ordinary cargo vehicle, and it's being converted, that's what I'm saying, that it's not time for DVLA to look at it to say, no, we are only going to register vehicles that have got the original seating arrangement, okay, in them. All those ones have got seat belts, okay? And then you pick up the seat belt, you would know that the manufacturing date of the vehicle goes with the seat belt. That should tell you that the vehicle has not been involved in any sort of accidents. So that is my first advice to DVLA. Secondly, enforcement of the laws is poorly being managed by all of us, including the law enforcers. Right? It's now time for us to also hit so hard. We must look at, for instance, the fines. And it's just weak in this country that you would seize my license, I'll be taken to court, the court takes my license from me, and so on. We don't have any system to say that this person shouldn't have any license again. I could easily go and pick a police extract and go back to collect my own license from the DVLA. So systems must also work, and then punitive measures must be placed so that those who are always recalcitrant, finding the ways to break the laws, must be dealt with just one way. And then I remember you came up with, is it a film? I mean, a whole production.
Yeah. My colleague Seth Kwame Boateng crashed.
Seth Kwame Boateng, I've been using that video to teach a lot, to educate a lot of people. And the one thing that I liked about the video is the guy who was jailed, the driver who was jailed 5 years, kneeling down, confessing that it was his fault, and he could have, prevented the accident. So, this is what my brother, my senior brother, is saying, that look, we need a lot more of education, okay? Multimedia are doing very well. What about the others? Okay, and it must be compulsory. We have so many TV stations, so many radio stations, just like we'll have the president coming to give his address. We need videos like this, information like this, to stop all TV radio stations, and then we do it. I mean, it's education. I'll give you another example, like when we had HIV/AIDS. I quite remember there was this lady who had lost all the flesh on her, and it was being shown on national TV, every TV station, every now and then. And Ghanaians picked a lot from it, and that is why we have figures of HIV on a very, low level. I mean, the percentage is very low.
But now the story is changing, unfortunately, for HIV, and some related to the lack of education. And so when the education was high, we had the reduced numbers. But I get your point, Mr. Gabra. There. Let me just quickly speak to Dr. Dr. Dakwa about the enforcement bit. Doc, so there are those who say we like to engage in a lot of talk shop here in Ghana. We sit on television, talk about all our problems, but the reality on the ground never changes. So the DVLA is responsible for approving and ensuring that the vehicles that are on our roads are up to standard, are quality, operating in the highest safety standard so that people who use them will be safe in case there is an accident. And we've just heard from Mr. Gabra on what the DVLA should be doing. But based on your study of the sector for all these years, are you confident that anything dramatic will happen anytime soon? Hello, Dr. Dakwa. That question was to you, sir.
I'm saying this engagement that we're having this morning has been held severally, but it seems governance are adamant. We all know that things like the law, the road traffic regulation, if it is really enforced, we have minimal consequences of crashes on our roads. But basically, it's not enforced. If we look at even the enforcing agency who stands by the roadside to even check the enforcement of the law, also have their different objectives. Look, the laws are preventive to crashes. When the laws start working, accidents start reducing. When we increase education, accident decreases. It is the same thing we're talking about the HIV. When HIV education starts increasing, the HIV occurrence rate also reduces. So education is everything, and it's preventive. Look, people, the laws has taken over everything that can prevent an accident from occurring. If a vehicle has no, how do you call it, seat belts, like my brother is saying, they are using this angle bar to create furniture and seat in the car without providing adequate seat belt in the car. This vehicle automatically should not be allowed to do what? To use the road for passenger carrying. So the DVLA has the tendency to not to register. The police have the tendency to apprehend these vehicles and keep them at bay. You see, and then two, I've also noticed one thing. Even the long distance buses that has the seatbelts, when the passengers sit in the bus, the drivers or the attendants of the vehicles also to educate people who are mostly on board of this vehicle about the usage of these seatbelts. They don't educate them. They don't tell the people about their exit doors.
Yeah.
Most vehicles don't do that. Look, when you board the plane, the right things are done. The moment they will tell you, fasten your seatbelt, so that everybody would start doing it. If you are not doing it, the crew members will be helping the people who do not know how to fasten it to do it.
Exactly.
Then they tell people, in case of emergency, these are your exits.
Yeah.
You don't do any education even by the owners, the operators of the vehicles in the vehicle. So in case anything happens, everything is confused. So these are some of the things we have to make sure that it works. It works. So the education we would hammer, and I know my brother will start with me, that the level of road safety education for drivers is very, very low. And we have to pep it up. Everybody's talking about money. But if you're talking about money, but let's cost the value of one person and a middle class person who dies. Let's cost the value. It's more expensive than the vehicle that he's sitting in. So when you talk about money, train your drivers, we save money. So do you want to kill them? So that is why the government should be serious about road safety education. Look at the number of people who die in a year. Look at the number of people who get injured in a year. It's too much, and we can do something about it.
Okay.
It has been tried and tested. So let's use that method. Let's use the law. Let's use the education, and we have most of our roads free from these crashes.
All right, Doc. I'll have you hold on at this point. Thankfully, Daniel Waku, he is Deputy Director of Planning and Programs at the National Road Safety Authority. He's joined us on the show. Thank you for your time this morning. So it appears the authorities in charge of road safety in our country and ensuring that the vehicles that ply our roads are safe, it appears that you are torn between legality or enforcing the law and compassion, because the laws exist and advice like the ones the consultants on this show have just given have been, spelled out over the years. But it appears the story keeps getting worse by the day. What exactly is the problem? Why can't we enforce the laws? And why can't we, like other societies do, progressively review our transport sector so that as and when new technology is developed, we incorporate it just to ensure that people are safe on our roads?
All right. Thank you very much. And I want to say a very good morning.
Sorry, Mr. Waku, it's quite difficult to hear you. If you could speak up a little, we'll be grateful.
Okay. All right. Is it
Great.
better now?
Much better.
Okay. I was saying that I was greeting your listeners, and the issue about road traffic crashes in the country is the alarming rate at which it is occurring is concerning individual Ghanaians as well as the authority that is responsible for the management of road safety in the country.
Okay.
We know that the production of road safety in the country falls on different agencies in the country. So when it comes to road safety education, for example, the National Road Safety Authority has a key responsibility. When it has to do with enforcement of the law, it falls on the police, MTTD, and part of it on DVLA also. When it comes to engineering, we have the road agencies and the emergency services also is there.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'll allow you to proceed. Just let me just get some clarity. Are you saying that the National Road Safety Authority doesn't have the power to enforce and implement some of these rules? Because
we in the wisdom of the Parliament of Ghana, there is something called duplication of rules. So we cannot allow duplication of rules. So National Road Safety Authority, even though it's an authority, it has the institutional authority on institutions that are providing road safety in this country.
So you can compel the police to enforce the law. That's it.
It is coming there. It is coming there. We had our new act, the mandate that gave us authority in 2019.
Exactly.
Now we are developing the LI that is going to support the implementation of the act, which is at the parliament level. Only waiting for it to be passed. If it passed, then the LI will be going to be implemented. In the meantime, I would say that road safety problem in this country, a lot of it has to do with human behavior. When we are talking about, for example, the inappropriate speeding of minibuses on our highway, or the general overspeeding of behavior of drivers on our highways, it is purely a human behavior thing, even though the enforcement is also there. We know that there are laws that govern the use of the roads. Why are we going against the laws? That is one thing. So compliance on the part of the road users is very important. That is why the doctor was saying that education is there. Education is key. If we educate, that is when you know the risks that are involved in the actions or the inactions that you take on the road. Therefore, the National Road Safety Authority is continuing the education. But I also like to agree with Doctor that education on the part of drivers is a bit low. And that is the reason why the National Road Safety Authority and the DVLA, for example, is coming back with a structured program to re-educate drivers across the country, which is going to take off next month or the month after next. Even last week we had a final discussion on the modalities of enrolling drivers onto the program to re-educate them. Secondly, it's about enforcement. Enforcement is very key, and the enforcement responsibility falls on the MTTD of the Ghana Police Service. And we know they also have their challenges though, but all the same, we also appeal to the National Road Safety Authority, the police entity also to step up their enforcement bit. I know they are on the highways, they are doing their best within the challenges that they find themselves. And I will only say that I will always add that maybe we could just go a little bit further within the confines that we find ourselves.
All right.
To ensure that enforcement is done.
Okay, so Mr. Waku, There are calls for Sprinter buses to be restricted to intra-city transportation. The Kibi Divisional Commander of the MTTD, DSP Henry Ajuman, also made that statement sometime last year. Has this ever come up in any of your discussions on road safety?
Oh, we have been getting the calls, we have been getting the concerns from the general public about the alarming rate at which these minibuses are involved in crashes, and we are all witnesses to that. The calls have been coming, but it has not come at policy level to discuss whether they should be restricted to intra-city. For me, that's my personal view, though. I will not really go there now. I still believe that it's a human thing, and the human being can change. If we educate the operators of these people to know that, to tell them that they have a responsibility. They have a responsibility for taking people that they have taken money from to transport them from one point to the other. They have that responsibility to take them to their destination safely. They must be able to do the right thing. Coupled with enforcement, I think that minibuses can be allowed to operate. The road has a speed limit. Why can't the buses operate within the speed limit? We also have in the law the regulations, road traffic regulations, LI 2180, the fixing of speed limit. We can also forward this, let's advocate for speed limiters also to be installed on all the commercial vehicles that fly in intercity. This will limit the speed at which they go. If the speed is regulated, if the speed is within the regulation, the law, the rate at which the crashes are occurring will not be that much. And the consequences that we also experience will not be so severe. So I believe that there are things that we can do. Education is one. Compliance, that's from the individual level, to comply to the law. I mean, comply according to the road traffic regulations, the speed at which we have to drive. Speeding is the problem. If we can control the speed, then we can move from here to Kumasi to Tamale in minibus and come back safely.
All right. So apart from the speed, there's also the problem of the quality of the vehicle. Some of them do not have seat belts installed. For Mr. Gabra, who opened this conversation, we shouldn't even be having this conversation at all, because most of these buses are originally not designed to carry human beings. They are for goods, they are for deliveries, but we bring them into this country, we convert them, and we do not even, have a certain safety standard.
I agree that these buses, a lot of them come into the country as goods vehicles.
But why are we allowing that?
Excuse me,
why are we allowing that?
Excuse me. There is a law that allows the conversion of the goods vehicles to passenger vehicles. That is what the DVLA is using to license these vehicles to carry passengers.
But the laws can be changed. I mean, you are the national... Sorry to interject you, sir. Sorry to interject you. But you are the National Road Safety Authority. The statistics point to a certain direction. Many of these vehicles are involved in accidents, and they are not up to standard. Would you recommend that we take a look at this law again? This law that allows vehicles to be brought into this country and converted to carry passengers and human beings?
The National Road Safety Authority, as a body responsible for road safety in the country, has been engaging stakeholders even in the review of the law. Currently, the review of the LI 2180 is underway. It's something maybe we can consider it, but we have to go for a general stakeholder consultation so that whatever the general public or the stakeholder consultation agrees upon, if it's a general call that these vehicles should be banned from carrying passengers, why not? That law the law is for the people. If the people say we should review it, we can review it. That one is possible.
If I get you right, this comes down to what the people want. and not so much as what is the standard, what is world best practice?
You see, currently there is a standard, and that standard is supposed to be followed. If the standards are followed to the letter, then the rate at which they occur and then the consequences that come out of it will be minimal. So there are a number of people in the value chain that are supposed to do what is right. So the standards are supposed, the DVLA is supposed to also ensure that the standards that they have set for these vehicles to meet before they are passed and given roadworthy certificates, they are met. And if it is met, if these ones are met, I am sure that when they get onto the road and something happens, the consequences will be less.
I'll come back to you shortly, but Dr. Dakwa, I mean, this concluding point of Mr. Waku is why I was asking if we don't appear to be torn between enforcement and compassion. Because there's that angle of, if you say that we should take all these vehicles off the roads, what would the drivers do? How will they take care of their families? You're looking at the economic impact. Also, if you take them off the roads, what will you do with all these thousands of such vehicles? So do you agree that we may be sacrificing quality, the safety of lives for, you know, ensuring that we don't have an economic challenge on our hands?
You know, when it comes to human's life, death and injury, there shouldn't be any compromise. A crime is a crime, even if that yields the highest bid of profit. It's a crime. People, the vehicles, the initial mode of which they were made for use, I overheard him saying that it has not come to the policy level. I think there should be a basis, a scientific basis to research into that, so that we can get the evidence from a research. Then we can go ahead to inform the policymakers, so that they come up with a policy whether it is good to ban it or not. Talking about the livelihood of the people who are operating these buses, it is just like the Okada thing. That it seems we come on it and we come off it. This thing is taking a whole toll of people's lives. And we are talking about employment. What about the person who died? What about the person who is injured? So emotions cannot supersede what the law requires. Emotions cannot supersede what criminality is. But what I would say, there should be a scientific evidence per research to support the assertion that the usage of these sprinter buses are causing mayhem on our roads. Therefore, it should be stopped. Then an enforcement comes in. So that's what we should get to. But my brother said something that I want to also talk about it. You know, I would like this country to take this line of action and see. You see, he agreed that education is the bedrock of solving this unfortunate incidents on our road. I am challenging two things. He's saying that natural road safety is combining their efforts to go ahead and do the training. I'm telling you, you can't be a player and a referee. You cannot. I am challenging them. They should do that, and let's measure the rate of accident reduction in a particular year. The following year, they should give it up to the private organizations to also do their training. And I'm telling you, the private organization will yield results. I can attest to that fact. I have evidence to that fact. When it comes like that, they want to bring their own people to do something, for them to do something. I'm telling you, people who have been in the industry, we have been in it for 35 years. We have wonderful people who are private entity, but probably because of monetary aspect involved, the DVLA and then the Road Safety Commission want to pick it up as if they can do it better than the private organization. And I beg to differ. talk to Mr. Gabra, Mr. Honorable Gabra, and then let Dr. Magashi, myself, and other people, JD, Mensa, and those people, let them come together, use their own companies, and give them about 100,000 of the drivers to train in this country. I will tell you that road crashes will go up severely. So they should stop this prayer referee game that they keep on praying every year. When the government gave them $3 million, 3 million cities, they did the same thing. Let's measure their results. So the kind of psychic that they have, thinking that the DVLA and that the how do you call it, the Road Safety Commission should come together and trade vehicle across the board to yield better revenue result. I'm telling you, it's a fallacy.
Mr. Waku, this is a proposal that has been.
Yes. Dr. Jarakwa. Yes, I mentioned that the National Road Safety Authority and the DVLA are putting out modalities to train drivers, but I didn't go into the modality, and I didn't say that they are the ones going to do the training. Actually, we know we are the regulators, so we cannot be players at the same time. So that one is very clear. It is going to be outsourced.
What we do every time. Mr.
No. It's going to be outsourced to the general.
You will come back again on the same topic, and you see that they are going to organize calls for people to come and start it, and it will not go anywhere.
All right,
Doctor. No, that's not the situation. That's not the situation. So the details are there. I mean, I don't think this is a forum to disclose the details.
All right.
About what is going to happen. But very soon you'll be seeing adverts in the newspaper for interested organizations that want to get engaged in the training to come and then enroll and then do the training on behalf of the National Road Safety Authority and the DVL.
All right, gentlemen, I'll have you hold on at this point. We'll be coming back into the studio to wrap up the conversation, but my colleague Brace is at the Neoplan station speaking to some drivers on this call for Sprinter buses to be restricted to intra-city travels. Hello, Kojo Brace. What have you been able to gather so far? All right, I understand there's some trouble with our line. Kojo Brace cannot hear me clearly, but he's currently at the Neoplan station, sampling views on the calls for Sprinter buses to be restricted to intra-city operations. Brace, if you can hear me, what have you been able to gather so far?
We are here at the Neoplan station to get thought, so to understand how people's thinking about this proposal that Sprinter buses should be limited to intra-city travels. So we've gathered around us some Sprinter drivers to try to get their thought on it. We are currently at the Neoplan station. Chief, it's saying Boko. And she said, Nianko for the abetu Johnny say a bay year. And Kayama Sprinter buses more there, Muntu Quine, Ewe Chrome Haya, and Tinkan Crying Crying Qua. I had Trotro, Mamma Moon, as at Mamma Colongian. Ojo will say,
a patrol, what kind of idea, any ye? Ain't me, you mind the sense to say. Accidents are not limited to only Sprinter buses. Ubenya VIP buses. You beat me share some nipa city. Sprinter bus beat me share some nipa bakukuru. Private cars and nam kwemu. O check here. Previously, no, you say private cars cause about 67% of road accidents. This is more kind of idea, and then I just say, mon can say private cars also be on far long journey. Kwanso. Now comes one park one cars, no metro buses and fan copy be or more. It is an can say Sprinter buses and your money there. Men kwama family, men
Okay, so what he is basically saying is that he disagrees with that proposal because a lot of cars and buses also do get involved in accident. He cited these long buses in which sometimes when they are involved in accident you can get close to 60 people dying. He thinks if it's only based on accident, then it is not enough for anyone to say that we should limit the Sprinter buses to only travel within the city. But Moshe Senior Mosi Kana Samo kana sa osi adwen omo so enko ye omo hwere omo nkwa no ho na nka ka so okay se sa na tie na nhwem na ba nde ene mo so mo wo aya ono omo nya adwen sa say because of say nkofo mo buses na time involving in accident tin ka limit no
me ba cha me no nya adwen kra because say the medical aka no all category of buses, private cars, sprinter buses, mini buses be at me accident
but say mo de no ene da soro a dentina yenhwe okay mo de na da so nti
criteria ko amode check is ade no nti I can't believe that data no am
yenhwe mu de omo ye
me nyintum
na say wo hu evidence no sa
evidence no yes I can challenge it whether is it true or not.
How can you challenge research or
say yenhwe we data ho GPR2 concerned drivers they nyina ya we data yenhwe di monitor your drivers na e call long journey no even sprinter bus say how can intracity na how can cry bit me accident u fatama motorway Winneba road Labadi o nyina to me accident so ni nyina is sprinter buses even though wo call on journey no cry no e bit me accident nti some categories ni nyina say sprinter buses na cause accident na there me kwa de me no nya adwen.
Okay, so he's basically still disagreeing. He thinks that per their data it is not true that they will be the leading causes of road accidents on our roads. Chief, but say, and listen to, I think you can manage a bit of English, so let's do the English thing.
Oh, I can speak
good.
English. Yes.
So if you look at the fact that
now I've started already in Cree, why do I have to continue in English?
If you look at the driver attitude on our roads, what are you doing to ensure that you have your drivers being disciplined on the road in a way to reduce road carnage?
I agree that some of our drivers are reckless. We are still advising them to limit their recklessness. We are still advising them to put a stop to those reckless driving on the highways and in the cities. We are advising them to stop it, those recklessness. Gradually, we are trying to overcome that, and I know with time it will be eliminated.
Okay, so you told me earlier you have a data. Per your data, what do you know about your cars being involved in road accidents?
Well, I don't have it offhand here, so I can't determine it.
Interesting. Let me get other perspectives. Stay with me, Chief. At saying,
Damiadum.
Also, yeah, sprinter driver. What chief from Hinfa to Hinfa?
Me chief Lia to Kumasi and Obuasi. Me kwa Accra, me kwa Takwa.
Kwa Takwa nyina.
Me ba chon.
Na ohwe senior nneoma si kona. One omo nya dwen. One omo nya dwen say nkai bia yen limit mo to bia city travels nko a.
Me de mo kasa me ne mo nya dwen. De ntia me ne mo nya dwen ne say drivers ya e crash sprinter. Yemu bia ne jai ko twi bus. Na minnimu de ntin so a omo kasa bus de enya accident na sprinter bus nko a na enya accident.
Aha, omso mu nyina mu nya accident ba mo de no ene da soro.
Omo kasa enyin de ene da soro a me fa ba bi me nti ase. Na sene na me papa di nka aka no. Se de na kire se ye de da soro. Me nya hu evidence bi a e kire sa. Na ade ba ko na bia wawafo ne ade nam kwam. Ebi omo hwe wawafo no. And Omodeka, yen station buses, especially Boasia Rani, let me say a whole of 1 year. You move here no honor when your program at this hour council. Timesa Obika bus on Kuanko Highway, na sprinter, and then number year. Me menjintum. The Boa City through now, Conamon, Cromabet buses, baby, and number your passengers. The Yomuji didn't highway driver. Any accident in sequence, you your car is warm for bus on Metinegu. Until me many of my adrenaline say sprinter and town na bus and highway.
So this driver is also basically disagreeing with the fact that they are the leading causes of road accident. He says, with what they've done in the past, their passengers even trust them, and that's why they still patronize them. And so he will disagree that they should be limited to intracity travels, and for buses to be on the highway traveling the long journeys. He basically disagrees with that. But let's get stay with me. Let's get a thought of some passengers as well to understand how they also see this proposal. Chief, how are you doing, sir?
Yeah, me
Okay. Also, when is one of offer sprint and I want to coin. Almost say sprinter buses no. Send almost me accident cost on also saying the other ones. What do you say?
Masa, any sprinter buses and any VIP and any way. A quan no more than yet. A quan phone no more. What you say? A quan muya na muya kama. Yes, at least I had to come and say quanoa. It is a muya for 4 lane. A babua, a bema accident bia a makwan sosa. The quania 1 lane, obia pentamaco, a better accident and a quan so muya papa. Over her quana to rough rope. What jabusia jaja untimina gana ye. Muntimina quan ye. In some Munquano Moto Mudino, and your drivers are some. But and I'm saying, and I'm saying, seminal. Yamahon take a crack. Why, Matthias, your boss. The American say, Omunya Kwani ye. So, Muya Kwani ye, Kumasi, a from Accra to Kumasi, Omuyan falling, and accident Piama.
All right, you, Mate. Chief, also a passenger. Okay, there was some way.
Asavno, the Tiana says, Kase, stop, sprinters in our any Juma. As I say, and no sooner any papi bre, ye dear, then Eddie. Anna, a Kwana say, Cassas and then paying for the case in our credit Timias dent. Jakwan Ancasa and Namson Ancasano, and yet. Anna, a quan and your cronancasa say, Penny be crampos are a bar, near Pamu in one side. And Tigana crank a bear, papa, and Comcas and fallen, or Saka 5 for no air daho, Bacuno dem ama, and paying for police guys, ambulance, and a band paying for more banner come off as Aquans, no monster poem, as then Tineband in 3,
Okay, you, Mate. Thank you. So what the two passengers are saying, they're also disagreeing with the finding and the proposal that sprinter buses should be limited to only intracity. They are also suggesting that we should rather be blaming the nature of our roads and that our roads are not good enough. They're asking that government should be constructing 4-lane roads for the highway so that we could have 4 cars moving in one direction. That they think will help in reducing road accident and not necessarily asking sprinter buses to only do intracity.
Would have to leave it here for now. Kocha Brace, my colleague, joining us from the New Plan Station. So just in wrapping up the conversation, let me quickly take the thoughts of our guests. 1 minute for you each, sir. So let me start with you, Mr. Waku. There are a lot of the drivers we spoke to who disagree that sprinter buses are causing most of the accidents on our roads. Do you have any statistics to share?
Yes, thank you very much. What I would like to say is that before now, the commercial transport sector is an open area for everybody or anybody to enter. The National Road Safety Authority, with the new mandate, is coming with regulation to regulate the commercial transport sector. When that takes place with the passage of the LI, then we are going to be very much interested in the driver. We are going to be very much interested in the vehicles that are going to be used. The problem of these Wawa people is going to be solved because very soon, if you don't belong to a union or an association, a driver association, you cannot operate a commercial transport in this country. So when all these things come into play, it's going to sanitize the commercial transport sector a little bit or a lot more than it is now. So if you listen to the conversation from the lorry station, you could see that a lot of what they are saying is human. We have the opportunity, the human element of it. We can change behavior. That is where we
Mr. Waku, sorry, we don't have a lot of time, so we need to wrap this up quickly.
And we can change. We have that opportunity to change behavior, and therefore I'm just appealing to every single driver to ensure that they go according to the speed limit of the road.
Earlier in the conversation, I made reference to a Peace FM Online story where the Kibi Divisional Commander of the MTTD, DSP Henry Ajuman, noted that these sprinter buses are mostly involved in accidents. Is that the case? Is it that most of our accidents on our highways, involve these vehicles?
We need, as Dr. Kiamata said, we need scientific data. The data, we have not yet gone into the data to point out that the sprinter buses.
Okay, but you have just to set to bring in some clarity. You have data on the vehicles that are involved in accidents. So you have commercial, you have private. Just that you've not broken it down into sprinter. All right, I appreciate your time here this morning. So your concluding thoughts, Dr. Dakwa. We've heard from the drivers, and we've also discussed a bit of the suggestion. But in realistic terms, because that's the most important thing, how do we put premium on human life and change the narrative on our roads?
Simple. It is extensive education supported by governance, which is the road safety and DVLA. Letting the expertise in the industry lead the fight for education and making sure that what the road traffic regulation prescribed for education and training for drivers will be adhered to without any form of intervention. We should allow the education to go on. Every driver, commercial driver, for every 6 months must go through a training, and their owners of the vehicle to pay, not the government. The owners of the commercial vehicles to pay for the driver's training. And every 6 months they have to go. And when they are going to renew their licenses with DVLA, they should produce a certificate from the training organization, a certificate of competence. And DVLA should see to that before granting the leave of that license renewal. And so DVLA should still go ahead with the National Road Safety Commission, authority, still go ahead and make sure that they certify the good driving schools in the system, okay? Both the learner driving and the top-up driving institutions, to make sure that they try to accept their certificates when they produce for license renewal. That was what we adhere to. Secondly, the law enforcement should do it in such a way that they make sure that the laws are being complied on the road. If a passenger is in a vehicle that is not wearing seat belt, the driver must be apprehended. The driver, not even the passenger. The driver must be apprehended. Because it is your responsibility for the driver to make sure that everybody in their vehicle have the seat belt on. And that's some of the things to reduce the crash.
All right, Doc, I appreciate your time this morning. In 1 minute, Mr. Gabra, if you can just wrap up with me. There were suggestions by Doc that we may want to go the aviation way, where drivers or the cabin crew will show you how to wear the seatbelt, insist that everybody has worn it before we take off. There are safety procedures that everybody is taking through. Is this worth exploring? Just there in a minute as you conclude, sir.
Well, Dr. Dako has said a lot, and I will agree with him. Honestly speaking, it's all about enforcement, it's all about education. This two goes together. In fact, we have the four technical is, but the two is that we've just spoken about, which is enforcement of laws and education, will reduce the crashes that we have, not only the sprinter, but general. Now, one thing that we should also know is that many Ghanaians have their daily income from commercial transport business. Drivers are always under pressure to, make their daily sales, and also they think about themselves as well. Now, what I am suggesting now is that sprinter passenger buses must replace angle iron seats locally manufactured without seat belts. And I'll suggest also that taxes on such buses could be reduced, so we'll have a total ban on the locally manufactured buses that have got angle iron in them and so on. We should also encourage the bus rapid transit system to take off. If we have a BRT system working, we'll not have all this hassle on commercial vehicles, which are causing a lot more of accidents. All of us will patronize such buses. And then finally, apart from the normal DVLA checks for renewal of roads worthy certificate, it is now also time for the technical team of the National Road Safety Authority, as well as the DVLA, to move to do reality situation checks, because most of the certificates that we see are all fake, and I'm telling you that that's the truth. Have you ever seen any sprinter bus or any bus entering any DVLA check points to renew the roadworthy certificates. But if you go and check, they all have certificates to say that, yes, I'm roadworthy. So I mean, the situation is quite serious, and that's why I'm calling for.
All right.
Finally, the transport audit.
Okay.
So we can stop all of these people from operation. And then they should give the opportunity to the consultant, the transport and road safety consultants, just like Dr. Chia Dakwa said, for us to manage all this training. And we shouldn't have the referee and the player doing the training. That will not work, and that is the accidents.
I appreciate your time this morning. Cecil Gabra is a transport consultant, and we've been having this conversation on restricting Sprinter buses to intra-city operations. A lot of thoughts shared here on the AM show. Do stay with us. Coming up shortly, we'll be talking about unemployment and the Eagles Forum Dialogue Series. Do stay. Thank you for joining or staying on the show. We've been joined now by Nicholas Isaac Agbana. He's executive member, the Eagles Forum Governance Dialogue. The Eagles Forum, executive member of the Eagles Forum, forgive me. But he's here to talk about the Eagles Forum Governance Dialogue Series. And this time they're focusing on unemployment. It's the second edition. Great to have you here, sir.
Thank you. And good morning to you and your viewers.
Thank you so much for joining us. So the Eagles Forum is a group of professionals from different backgrounds. Just tell us a bit about what you do.
So the forum is 5 years old. We have a diverse group of professionals. Our interest is in social activism, economic issues, and also advocacy, and a bit of political activism as well.
Okay.
And we are registered as a company limited by guarantee.
Okay, so tell us a bit of the people who are part of this forum, what they do.
All right. So, like I said, the forum is made up of various professionals, and as part of our contribution to the discussion on national issues, we put together the Eagles Forum Governance Dialogue Series. In fact, we had our first dialogue last year, in November, where we discussed amendments to the 1992 Constitution. And tomorrow at JIMPA, we'll be discussing unemployment with myself as a keynote speaker and other panelists.
Unemployment is a big issue in Ghana. We talk about it almost all the time on radio. But currently in this country, there are two big major issues. Take the e-levy, for example, very topical. Why your choice for unemployment as a point of focus?
All right. So various national surveys have brought it up as the #1 issue. In fact, back in 2017, there was a Ghana Living Standard Survey that flagged it as a key issue. If you look at election 2020, a couple of people did surveys, including our group, unemployment also featured as #1. Then also, after the election, the Center for Democratic Development did a survey to ask Ghanaians what they thought government should be focusing on. And once again, unemployment showed up as #1. So yes, e-levy would come and go. I mean, this morning I heard you discussing of road safety. Those issues would come and go, but unemployment would always be with us as a key issue. And I think also that the data coming from the 2021 population and housing census, which is the most recent data, also makes it quite worrying that yes, we must pay much more serious attention to it because it has implications for national stability and also even for national security.
So what form will this dialogue series take?
So the dialogue would be, I'm there as a keynote speaker, 30 minutes. Then we'll have a group, a panelist, a panel discussion. And on the panel, we have Helga Boadi, who ran an employment program in government before. We have the president of the JIMPA SRC. Then we have an entrepreneur, a young woman entrepreneur, who join us to share thoughts on how we can address the problem. But let me emphasize that we're not there to talk just about the issues. We are there to also offer solutions. Because I think that though the issues are discussed a lot, but what is lacking in a good number of cases are solutions to problems. So a very key part of the conversation is to focus on solutions, but solutions driven by what the data is saying. And so that is what the conversation will be about tomorrow.
And so beyond the discussion at the venue, how do you hope to push, this conversation further? Because you're talking about solutions, and I'm just wondering how, you elevate it to the necessary quarters.
Good. So the follow-up from the dialogue tomorrow will be two key things. One is that we'll definitely put together something we call a brief, a policy brief, share it with key government institutions, and also share it with our political parties, which at the end of the day inform policy. And the second bit also is that, of course, we know we are not the only group discussing these matters. We hope to use this dialogue to also join up with other groups to build momentum to push advocacy on the subject. So it won't just be a talk show. We have clear plans to follow up on what we do tomorrow.
Interesting. So who can be part of this?
It's an open event at the Jimpa Law School. Arrival is 3:30. We start at 4 p.m. We'll also be on Facebook Live. And so those who can join us physically are more than welcome to join the Jimpa Law School Auditorium. 3:30 arrival time tomorrow.
Okay, Facebook Live, what account?
Eagles Forum.
Eagles Forum.
Yes.
Okay, so you just type Eagles Forum in Facebook, and then you can join the conversation virtually. But is it strictly by invitation? Do I need to pick a ticket before the event? Or
No, it's free.
In?
It's free. You can walk in.
Okay.
You can walk in.
At 3:30.
At 3:30 and join us.
Interesting.
And of course, let me also add that after the panel discussion, of course, there will be some opportunity for the audience to also share some thoughts on the issue. So not just joining, but you can also come and add your voice to the conversation and share your perspectives as well.
Okay, so we have people watching us all across Ghana and beyond, and so I'm sure for them the virtual option will be the best. How do you incorporate them into the whole dialogue series?
Like I said, we'll have a Facebook Live event. We would also make some provision to find, depending on how the technological setup is, we would also have a few voices on the live digital to also join us to share one or two thoughts beyond the physical participants.
Okay, you're saying this is the second dialogue series you held.
Yes.
What was the first one on? And so far, you appear to be a very solution-oriented group.
Yes.
How far with, that earlier conversation and the solutions you preferred?
Yes. So the first one was on the 1992 Constitution, the need for a review. We had Justice Remsai, who is a constitutional lawyer, to give the keynote address. We had the likes of Dr. Akreti participating. But through that forum, we've also linked up with other CSOs that are working in issues of democratic development to contribute to that agenda. So that has been the follow-on. Let me say that advocacy definitely needs numbers. And so Eagles Forum alone can't push the agenda. It's good I'm here today. The media is part. But through this event, we also link up with other advocacy groups to push that agenda and hopefully advise on policy matters as well.
Okay, so the program is tomorrow. Someone may be interested in the program, but beyond that, they may want to be a member of the Eagles Forum. How do they do that?
They should just go to their website, their phone numbers, their emails there. Just send us an email, call somebody, and we'll take you through the registration process.
Okay, so it's just as easy as a Google search of the Eagles Forum and finding the website.
Absolutely.
Interesting. Thank you very much for your time this morning. You just had Nicholas Isakakbana. He is going to be speaking tomorrow on unemployment crisis, dimensions and solutions. And it's the second dialogue series of the Eagles Forum. And he just explained to us why they're focusing on unemployment. Just to give you a bit of background to who he is, he's a development economist with 30 years experience. And he is currently the global lead for supportive business ecosystems at Solidaridad. So just who we are talking about and who you're going to be listening to tomorrow. Really appreciate that you could join us this morning. We wish you all the best.
Thank you. Thank you.
"20 minutes to top of the hour." Still the AM show with Bernice and Benjamin. And like I told you, we'll be taking your thoughts quickly shortly on our big stories. Benjamin, we are talking about fuel price increase. We discussed this yesterday, but it's still not yesterday. Sometime last week.
It's a discussion we've been having.
Yes, but it's still very topical because many people entered their trotros today and they were told you'd have to pay more.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's a concern for many people, and we'd like to take your thoughts on that. You had an interesting conversation with Kojo Poku and the gentleman from the Concerned Drivers Association.
Mr. Agbado. Interesting indeed, and two divergent opinions. Mr. Agbado obviously thinking, hey, we don't have a choice. You know, we have to do what we're doing. He mentions quite a number of things. He's talking about the prices of lubricants, the prices of fuel, spare parts, among others, and saying we don't have a choice. Our hands are tied. But Kojo Poku disagrees. But my major concern in there, the fact that like fuel prices in the past, apart from government coming through in this window or the past one, once the transport fares go up,
they don't come down.
They don't come down. And to make matters worse, sometimes when you say they are pegging it at 20%, they may not be able to find the pesos, 1 peso or 2 peso, so they roll it over. So even more of a cost burden on the ordinary Ghanaian. And these are the problems ordinary Ghanaians boarding public transport will have to face.
And I remember you put that question to him about whether they will consider a reversal, or what will it take?
Right.
Those were your words. What will it take for a reversal of the prices? Well,
and you heard his response, right? Basically nothing. No matter what the reversals are.
Yeah. So, well, we'll take your comments quickly on Facebook. Benjamin will run us through those ones on how...
Okay, so we put the question out there. How will you survive this new increase in transport fares? We have Young Paddy, starting with him. He says, government needs to increase the salaries of workers with immediate effect. Okay, all right. There's also a Young Paddy coming back to say, they're planning a salary decrease to donate the rest in building a cathedral. That's what you say. Okay. There's also this one from Michael Tete, who says, okay, I can't take that comment. It is in poor taste. Please season your comments, else they will not be readable in that context. There's also this one that says you have dichotomized your opinion without an insult. Okay. Chief Kochoko says, oh, only increase, they should double it. Wow, that is, Bernice, that's a bit of mischief over there.
I think it's in reply to the person who said the salaries of government workers need to be increased.
Okay.
So he thinks that it should be doubled.
Right. This one says, Ajwa Salamatu says, it's Ado, bro. Okay, so some comments coming through now. We'll pick a few more of your comments on Facebook, on social media, but mind you, we'll also activate the phone lines so we can hear from you. Vida Pia says it is true what Young Paddy was stating earlier. Okay, so those are some of the reactions coming through. Frank Baumia says, the same way we survived Mahama's terrible administration. And so that is the same way they're going to survive this one. If you look at it, you'll see 18 replies in there. It would be interesting to find out some of what people are saying. But Eli Aku says, God is our help in times of need. I always say Ghanaians are magicians. So you take 1,000 or 1,500 cedis monthly, take care of your family from it, transport to work from it, hospital bills, utility bills, rent, and send some to your extended family members. God is our help. Okay. And then Emmanuel Arthur says, oh, why? Not again, please. In addition to the e-levy, the charges I am paying on the e-levy, even from bank to wallet, I can't think far. Now, fuel and transport increments. Please, let's come together and voice things out before some people take it as though the country belonged to them, so they wouldn't listen to anybody. So those are some thoughts coming through. Let's roll up a bit and so Collins says, you are now asking about survival. Someone was managing the economy diligently, but all the media, Christian councils, celebrities, individuals, and many more came together to bastardize the government. And here we are. Everything has turned upside down. The economy is in great distress. The media can't talk now. Not all that glitters is gold. And that was a jab right there. Yeah. But people never, they never shy away from doing this. Kwekwakwa says, from Ashaiman to Tema was 3 cedis, 70 pesos, and it has been increased to 4 cedis, Bernice, 4 CDs, 50 pesos, dear. Why? It's too much.
Wow.
So that's a what? That's an 80 peso increment.
Yes.
370 to 450, 80 pesos.
50 pesos shy of 5 CDs.
Wow. Abraham, maybe we could do the, Bernice, maybe we could do this. We could 370 to 450 and get whether it is 20% exactly or more. Maybe we could quickly do that. 3 CDs, 70 pesos to 4 CDs, 50 pesos. But this one, Abraham says, but everything has been increased in this country. Drivers and car owners also deserve to survive. Hence the increase in transport fares. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so we can quickly take your calls now, 0302 211 691, 0302 211 692. And we're talking about the increase in fuel prices and also the proposal that commercial Sprinter buses should be restricted to intra-city operations. We've heard from the consultants, we've heard from those who manage our road safety. Let's hear from you, those who use the vehicles every now and then. We'd like you to share your thoughts with us on those particular ones there. But Benjamin, the comment you read earlier about the gentleman who says a lot of people earn between 1,000 to 1,500 and they have to cater for utility bills, they have to pay children's school fees and do a lot from
Send something to the extended family.
Yes, it reminds me of a conversation I was having over the weekend, and I mean, a gentleman just concluded, said, oh, you can't rely on your salary alone in this economy. You need to do something, you know,
You need to do I was just about to say that. You need to do some definitely.
Yeah.
And but even before we go on the phone lines, I'd like to find out from you, what do you think about the Sprinter buses? I'm sure you have experiences to share.
Yes, yes. So when I was at Infantaman Girls, we didn't have these buses like the STCs plying the Kumasi Salt Pond stretch. If you needed to go with such a bus, it means that you would have to take from Kumasi to Cape Coast, get off at Yamransa, and then take one of these, you know, Sprinter buses to Infantaman Girls. And it was stressful because you're traveling with luggage, provisions and all. And so I remember one time I took one of these buses, on one occasion, I took one of these buses and I sat, the seat I sat on was directly under the tire. Above, sorry, not under. So it was directly above the tire.
So they shove it right underneath you, so you can't even place your legs properly.
There's no leg room. And I'm not exaggerating. After that journey, I was sick for about a week. It took me about a week to recover because that road is bad. Anybody who knows the Kumasi Salt Pond stretch, it was terrible. And I really, really struggled. And most importantly for me, there were no seat belts. Benjamin, that's my major concern.
So that's the bit, because these are cargo vehicles that we transform into, you know, passenger vehicles. That is the first problem. And the way they have the seating chock-a-block, even when there's an accident, so to speak.
Crash. Well,
disaster.
Okay, so quickly, let's take Ato calling us from Mamobi. Hello, sorry, we run out of time, so you have to be very snappy with your comments, but thank you for joining the program.
Hello.
Hello, Ato, we can hear you.
Okay, good morning. Please, the way things are increasing these days, in fact, everybody has to survive. Everybody has to survive, and the drivers, the way you can see how they are suffering with their children and family is too much. And the way the country is going, in fact, you people should help us.
So, Ato, you think the increment is justified, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for your time. Sorry, that's all time will allow us. Christopher is joining us from KJB. Great to have you. Let's hear your thoughts.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning, Chris. Go ahead with your thoughts, please.
Yeah, please, in fact, we workers in this country are suffering. If there is not, if the government is not doing anything, there is, you hear workers committing suicide. They're spending at home and everything, taking care of wages and everything is becoming too much. We are begging the government. We are also human beings. We are begging the government. Please.
Chris from KJB, thank you for getting interactive.
Almost getting emotional there. Almost getting emotional there. You can feel it, you know. Yes. We have Abdul from WA. Abdul, let's hear what you have to say.
Hello, Abdul.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning. This is Abdul Wahab from WA.
Right, Abdul, we can hear you loud and clear. What do you have to share with us on these two matters?
But I just know what the government is. Hello?
Go ahead, Abdul, we can hear you.
Our daily, day in and day out, so we don't know what to do. Hello?
I think you're talking about the fuel price increments, yes, and that you don't know what to do. Your line is cracking up a bit. That's the problem.
Everything is increasing. So the country is hot, and we are struggling. We are pleading on the government to reduce the food price.
So sorry, Abdul, we seem to have a challenge with your line, but we'll just end this segment with Mahama, who's joining us from the OT region. Let's hear you, sir. Too bad we lost him. We have to quickly wrap up, Benjamin. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. Yes.
The OT region.
Yeah, too bad.
But pretty interesting discussions we've had today. I mean, the bit to do with the transport fare hikes. This is a crucial matter, and I feel we must do something either to stabilize so that they can't overshoot the prices, and also to prevent the transport fare hikes, like Ojupoku was saying, because once they get there, there's no coming back.
And you know how it translates into every other thing, you know.
Everything else.
Yeah.
Everything else.
Well, we would have to wrap it here, but we really appreciate your company this morning. As always, we'll come back again tomorrow at 6 a.m. Benjamin.
To do the
Yeah.
the AM show.
Definitely.
And to serve all of you. We're grateful to you that you made the time to join us. Our major bulletins come your way at 10 shortly, and at noon as well. And tomorrow, let's connect on the AM show. From us here, it is bye-bye for now.
Take care.